Chapter 2281. Yuan Tianjie was more than just disappointed. It was simply burning from the inside out. Heart King destroyed his unique heart of 7 orifices before the battle. It was equivalent to turning all of his cultivation, all of his energy, all of his soul, all of his spiritual energy, and all of his consciousness into the purest battle energy. At this moment, his cultivation had increased by 3 times out of thin air. Everything had been turned into the energy of this battle. That was not all. The key was that as long as the battle ended, regardless of victory or defeat, Heart King's body, mind, soul, and original spirit would all vanish. Not a single trace would remain in this world. Not to mention any energy would be devoured by the enemy. A king of a generation sacrificed all of his cultivation just for this battle. Yuan Tianjie roared and flew over, overflowing with killing intent. The person he hated the most now was no longer the Book King. It was the Heart King, exhilarating. He had almost completely destroyed all of his hopes in front of his own eyes. In Yuan Tianjie's understanding, what Heart King said to Crazy Book Painting King was to let Crazy Book Painting King follow the example of the 3 kings who had already sacrificed themselves. Like them, he would also explode his original soul and let Heart King devour it. Then, he would have a final battle with Yuan Tianjie. And this was undoubtedly something that Yuan Tianjie could not tolerate. Not only did his cultivation not improve greatly during this training, but because he forcefully counterattacked Crazy Book's invasion and suffered the explosion of his original spirit, he also consumed a lot of his life potential to destroy the 4 kings' physical bodies. Don't look at how powerful he was now. After a short while, his cultivation would decrease sharply. Originally, the 3 kings' original spirits were his best means to replenish himself. He didn't expect Heart King and the 3 kings to be so resolute and decisive, completely destroying his hope. And the remaining Crazy Book and Painting King was already Yuan Tianjie's last hope. No matter what, he couldn't be schemed against by Heart King. Naturally, he had to launch an attack immediately and not give Heart King a chance to devour. In the face of Yuan Tianjie's storm-like attacks, Heart King actually didn't dodge at all. Just like that, he directly rushed over without any tricks. When he rushed over, he took one last look at his 2 remaining brothers from the corner of his eye. Book King, Painting King. Brothers, please take care. We won't meet again. He couldn't say anything else. If he said one more word, all of their plans would be exposed. As for what Yuan Tianjie thought, it was no longer important. The more he attacked him, the easier it would be for his 2 brothers to escape. And all of his emotions, all of his blessings, all of his hopes, all of them stopped at the corner of his eyes. Perhaps he didn't even have the time to express them, or perhaps he had already expressed them thoroughly. As for the rest, he couldn't care less. Heart King exhilarating had already clashed head-on with Yuan Tianjie. Heart King suddenly let out a bitter laugh and said with a long sigh, "This king has let down purple firmament, Heavenly Emperor. I am ashamed to face Si Shao Tian. I hate that I couldn't go to the purple clouds and fight the heavenly demon together. See how, take today's battle as my apology to you." Yuan Tianjie's attack was like a violent storm, mixed with destructive power, crazily hitting Heart King. Heart King's face was calm. He used all his power to entangle Yuan Tianjie. He didn't fight back or resist, but only used his own cultivation to entangle Yuan Tianjie as much as possible, firmly entangling him. "If you guys still don't leave, the 5 of us won't die in peace." This was the last sentence that Heart King left behind. Then, without any warning, there was an explosion. This explosion was really earth-shattering, like the cries of ghosts and the howls of gods. Heart King showed all of his fighting posture, showing his unbounded determination to take revenge. But from the beginning to the end, he didn't fight with Yuan Tianjie at all. It was when his strength was at its best and strongest, he resolutely self-destructed. Because Heart King clearly knew that even if the 3 kings' original spirits were all instilled, even if he gave it his all, he was still not Yuan Tianjie's opponent. After 1,000,000 years of understanding, no one was clearer than them about the strength of this heavenly Emperor Mo Yun. In the end, he would still die in battle. Then, why not self-destruct when he was at his strongest? Only this way could he deal the most direct and thorough blow to Yuan Tianjie. Self-destruct at this time, the power was enough to seriously injure Yuan Tianjie. Moreover, the most important and most crucial thing was that this explosion could completely tear apart the Devil King domain. As long as there was a gap in the Devil King domain and Yuan Tianjie was seriously injured, then the painting and calligraphy kings would have a chance to escape. Letting the painting and calligraphy kings escape was Heart King's final wish at this moment. After a loud explosion, the painting and calligraphy kings cried out, "Big brother!" Under the intense explosion, the two of them didn't hesitate and flew up at the same time, no matter how unwilling they were. Even though they would rather choose to fight to the death here with their brothers. But they knew their big brother's wish. They also knew their big brother's concerns. Yuan Tianjie's identity must be exposed at the first moment. Otherwise, if the Heavenly Emperor was actually a heavenly demon, when the real battle with the heavenly demons came, Heaven Imperial Court would definitely suffer a crushing defeat. This was undoubtedly a huge responsibility that no one could bear. And their big brother also said before, "If you guys don't leave, the 5 of us won't die in peace." 5 of us. This included the chess master who died in Demon Emperor Heaven, as well as Heart King, Soul King, Flower King, and Power King here. Even if their hearts were dead, how could they let their brothers die in peace? Big brother, take care. When I'm done with this, I'll come and reunite with you guys on the day when I've slaughtered all the heavenly demons. The two kings felt as if their hearts were being twisted by a knife, and they were in so much pain that they wished they were dead. But they flew up with a shrill howl, risking their own bodies to bear the impact of the explosion. At the same time, they exploded with all their strength, desperately bombarding the Demon King domain with the force of the explosion. Boom! The previously indestructible Heavenly Demon King domain exploded with the sound. Combining the strength of Yuan Tianjie himself, the instantaneous explosion of Heart King's cultivation, and the lifetime cultivation of Book King and Painting King, it was the Heavenly Demon King domain that was said to be unbreakable by anyone in the world. Broken! It vanished into thin air. The source of the violent explosion, with the underground as the starting point, swept out violently. In just an instant, it had already affected the entire Ink Cloud Heaven Imperial City. Boom! The entire Ink Cloud Heaven Imperial City actually flew up into the air, and instantly shattered into pieces in the air, turning into fine powder. This degree of explosion was almost equivalent to the power of Shui Leihan and Yuan Tianjie, the two great heavenly emperors self-destructing together. How could a small imperial city withstand it? Yuan Tianjie's million years of foundation, all his wives and concubines in the imperial palace, without any power to resist, turned into a bloody pulp in a daze. In the sky, there seemed to be a merciless flash of Heart King's clear and cold face. Those indifferent eyes seemed to sweep across this miserable scene for the last time, and disappeared in a flash. All of this was originally planned by Heart King. You killed my entire family, killed my brother's entire family. Today, even if I can't kill you, I'll bury your entire family with you. I'll let you have a taste of the wonderful feeling of having your entire family annihilated and living alone. Under such a violent explosion, don't think that any of your demon children can survive. Chu Yang will only kill you, but I, Xian Wuhan, will destroy your entire family. Yuan Tianjie, don't think that you'll have a good life from now on. Although you've harmed my entire life, from now on, as long as you're not dead, don't think that you'll forget me for even a moment. I'm Heart King, Xian Wuhan. Book King and Painting King roared wildly. At the same time, they spat out a mouthful of fresh blood with pieces of their internal organs. With a flash in the sky, they disappeared without a trace. In a place filled with smoke, a few drops of clear tears fell silently from the sky. The tears of Book King, the tears of Painting King. With an extremely furious roar, Yuan Tianjie soared to the sky from the ruins covered in wounds. Although Heart King's self-explosion was close at hand, it still couldn't take Yuan Tianjie's life in the end. But this heavenly Emperor Mo Yun's current conduct also didn't have that calm and unrestrained demeanor of the past. He became ferocious and terrifying, and he became battered and exhausted. At this moment, he was even worse than a beggar. All his limbs were broken, his flesh was badly mangled, and many white bone stubs were exposed. One of his arms was missing, and a section of tendons on his shoulder was still contracting. Even one of his legs was broken, his nose was completely gone, and one of his eyes was also missing. If this appearance was seen by people familiar with him, they definitely wouldn't dare to believe that this was the ruler of this world. Bah! Yuan Tianjie turned his head and spat out a black tooth. He gritted his teeth and said, "Bastard! Bastard! Bastard!" As he muttered and cursed angrily, dense demonic qi emitted from his body. Heavenly Demon Rebirth Great Technique. The current Yuan Tianjie already didn't have any spare time to curse or check his losses and casualties. What he needed to do now was to quickly recover in the shortest amount of time. If it exceeded a certain amount of time, even with the Heavenly Demon Rebirth Great Technique, he wouldn't be able to recover his body. After all, this was the self-explosion of a peak saint expert. That kind of extremely strong hatred attached to it was enough to make an expert with the ability to regenerate his body could only look on helplessly at his own disability, and be unable to do anything about it. Even Yuan Tianjie also didn't dare to be the slightest bit negligent. A burst of black fog rippled densely. After a long while, the black fog slowly drifted away, and Yuan Tianjie's voice muttered, "Drawing water with a bamboo basket is all for naught. Damn Xian Wuhen!" After this battle, Yuan Tianjie's original cultivation was reduced by no less than 80%. Now, although he made use of the Heavenly Demon Rebirth Great Technique to regrow his disabled limbs, the cultivation that he lost previously was something that even someone of his level couldn't bear. If he wanted to recover, it was absolutely impossible without a year and a half. Even if he recovered, it was also impossible for him to fully recover. The series of attacks previously had already damaged his foundation. Chapter 2282. Damn it! Yuan Tianjie cursed again. No one knew if he was cursing the book maniac, the painting king, or the heart king. Only at this moment did Yuan Tianjie have the time to look at his surroundings. But when he looked around, Yuan Tianjie was immediately stunned. He was dumbfounded. In front of him, where was the palace? This was a place even more miserable than a ruin. A wasteland worse than a dog kennel. As far as the eye could see, there were splashes of flesh and blood everywhere. The pungent smell of blood assailed his nostrils. Yuan Tianjie was stunned for a moment before he suddenly let out an unprecedentedly shrill scream. "My palace! My empress! My son! My family!" Yuan Tianjie roared angrily to the sky. Under the rapid search of a peak stage Saint Realm expert's enormous divine sense, Yuan Tianjie instantly discovered a fact. That was, those people he cared about. Now, not a single one of them could be found. There was no reaction at all. This result could only indicate one possibility. They were all dead. All of them had been reduced to ashes by the explosion just now, and their souls had been destroyed. Yuan Tianjie felt cold all over. So Xian Wuhan's biggest blow to me was actually this. I once destroyed his family, but today, he's risking his life, dispersing his body and soul, just to let me have a taste of what it's like to have a family destroyed. Yuan Tianjie cursed angrily. In the past, when he killed someone's blood relatives, he only felt the satisfaction of his trick succeeding. Today, after losing all his blood relatives, he was actually so heartbroken. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the distance, countless figures were leaping over. "Your Majesty! Your Majesty, are you all right?" There were the many guards outside the palace. This incident happened too unexpectedly, and the process was extremely short. Their cultivation was relatively ordinary, so they only rushed over now. As for the original guards in the imperial city, no matter how many there were, and no matter what cultivation they had, they were all dead at this moment. The entire palace was now like a mass grave. Under such an earth-shattering explosion, everyone within the imperial city, without exception, died a violent death. There were even many places outside that were affected by the explosion. Preliminary estimates showed that at least 500,000 people had died in this explosion, walking together in the spring. Boom, 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 rumbling sounds continued to come from outside, and even the earth was shaking. It was the aftermath of the explosion just now. Within 1,000 miles of the Moyen Sky Imperial City, different degrees of earthquakes occurred at the same time. Almost all the steep mountains in the surroundings experienced landslides and slides at the same time. As far as the eye could see, the land within a radius of several thousand miles was filled with wailing. Yuan Tianjie took a deep breath, his eyes shooting out an unprecedented murderous aura. He waved his hand and shouted, "Let the Prime Minister come over! Begin! Encircling the rebels!" At this point, he felt the anger in his heart, and it was getting more and more intense. Finally, he could not help but roar, "Kill, kill! Kill them all! Kill!" Along with this thunderous roar, the shaking Moyen Sky Imperial City started, the tremors and the tremors. Deep sorrow finally appeared in Yuan Tianjie's eyes. Even if Yuan Tianjie was a heavenly demon, he could be cold-blooded and heartless to others. But how could he be truly heartless to his own family? If he was truly heartless, why would he spend so much effort to go against Zhu Yang for his dead son? Now, the people he cared about the most were almost completely annihilated by the Heart King's explosion. In the past, it was only him, Yuan Tianjie, who annihilated the human race. Today, it was his, Yuan Tianjie's, clan that was annihilated. Karma was the cycle of reincarnation. Who said the heavens had no eyes? Who said the heavens had no proof? Kill! Yuan Tianjie roared fiercely again with red eyes. Mu Tsunglan was in the study of the residence, seemingly drinking leisurely. But his brows were tightly knitted from beginning to end. He had a feeling that something bad was about to happen. This was the intuition of a high-level cultivator. This kind of strange premonition that only high-level cultivators had. This kind of special intuition told him that something terrible was about to happen or had already happened. This kind of mysterious intuition was often indescribable with words, but it was real and true. Unfortunately, this intuition was more like a kind of intuition. It was not something that could be controlled by humans. It was always the only thing that warned you, but you could never actively trigger it. Mu Tsunglan was thinking about what exactly was wrong, or what could possibly be wrong. Suddenly, he felt an unusually strong sense of danger coming straight at him. This sense of danger was even more real than the previous intuition. Mu Tsunglan was shocked. He knew that something very important must have happened. He immediately activated his cultivation at the peak of the saint level to protect his entire residence. Then, with a sway of his body, he was already standing on the roof. He was about to spread out his divine sense to find out where the enemy came from, to actually come to Emoyintian's capital to cause trouble. Suddenly, he felt an inexplicable tremor underground. Then, a terrifying aura that could destroy the world swept over from the direction of the imperial palace in the distance. Mu Tsunglan, who had always been determined, was almost scared out of his wits at this moment. Once again, he exerted all his strength to resist this sudden and terrifying power. However, boom! The entire marshal's residence jumped up from the ground, at least 10 feet from the ground. Then, with a boom, it fell down and most of the houses were torn apart. There were screams everywhere in the residence. Fortunately, under Mu Tsunglan's protection, there were no casualties. But even so, it still made Mu Tsunglan extremely shocked. He couldn't help but be shocked. On his side, there were 2 peerless experts protecting him. Other than himself, there was also Shadow. Such a lineup was actually unable to resist this wave of tremors. One had to know that this was only the aftermath of the conflict. What exactly was the situation? How could there be such powerful experts fighting in Emoyintian's capital? If such a thing had happened, how could he not know about it? Also, the location of the conflict was from the direction of the Imperial Palace. The Imperial Palace. Mu Tsunglan's heart suddenly jumped. The ominous feeling grew stronger and stronger. He was about to use his movement technique to rush to the imperial palace. But right at this moment, an extremely shrill sound of breaking air came from afar. Just by hearing this sound and the explosive sound, Mu Tsanglan already knew that there were 2 experts on the other side. 2 super experts. Shadow flashed like a ghost and appeared beside him. His face also revealed a sincere look of caution. Powerful enemies had appeared. Tonight, Mo Yutian was destined to be turned upside down. Just as Shadow appeared beside Mu Tsanglan and stood still, before he could even open his mouth to ask, the 2 figures on the other side had already appeared in front of Mu Tsanglan. Mu Tsanglan focused his eyes and looked at the people who had come. He was truly shocked and dumbfounded. Book King! Painting King! They were actually Yuan Tianjia's 2 personal guards. Also, the condition of these 2 people was not good. The Painting King and Painting King's faces were as pale as paper and covered in blood. However, the murderous aura that flowed from their bodies seemed to want to break through the sky and spread 3,000 li. What's the matter with you guys? What happened to the Imperial Palace? Mu Tsanglan asked anxiously. How is His Majesty now? What kind of tragic situation could cause the 2 kings to be injured like this? Just now, there was an unimaginably terrifying attack from the direction of the Imperial Palace. At this moment, Yuan Tianjia's personal bodyguards appeared here. The 2 bodyguards with extremely high cultivation were even heavily injured. Everything pointed to the fact that a huge change had happened to Heavenly Emperor Black Cloud, Yuan Tianjia. Yuan Tianjia is an extraterrestrial demon! The Book King's sudden words were too unexpected. It made Mu Tsanglan's head feel as if it was ruthlessly smashed by a big hammer 1,000 times. He couldn't help but feel dizzy. Even his body swayed a few times. How was this possible? How was this possible? Yuan Tianjia, Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun is an extraterrestrial demon! The Painting King spat out blood as he spoke. His eyes were filled with grief and indignation. Heart King, my elder brother and the rest are already finished. They all died in the hands of this demon Yuan Tianjia, General Mu. Take care of yourself, the Painting King said in surprise. We'll meet again someday. The Book King's tone was the same as the Painting King's. General Mu, you must be careful of the Demon King's evil hands. We'll meet again in the battle of slaying the demons. Before he finished speaking, the 2 figures had already soared into the sky. They swayed and turned into 2 rainbows, instantly disappearing without a trace. After a few words without rhyme or reason, the 2 immediately left. Mu Tsanglan was the number 1 person in Mo Yun Sky's military. If he was misled by Yuan Tianjia's words, it would inevitably lead to far-reaching consequences. Therefore, after the 2 escaped from the Imperial Palace, although they knew that time was tight, they still didn't leave directly. They rushed to Mu Tsanglan's place to give him a warning. As long as Mu Tsanglan knew this information, it didn't matter whether he believed it or not. Even if he only had a little bit of suspicion, that was enough. At this moment, Mu Tsanglan still hadn't recovered from the shock of that sentence. He only felt that his mind was in a mess. He actually forgot to stop or say goodbye to the 2 people as they left. His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor was actually an extraterrestrial demon. General Mu, do you think this matter is true or false? Ing asked solemnly. I'm afraid this matter is 80% true. Mu Tsanglan had always been a steady and resolute person. He quickly calmed down, and his eyes emitted a cold light. The first emperor and the empress each have their own inheritances. Only Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun appeared out of nowhere. No one knew his background beforehand, although he had explained it afterward, and his resume was also impeccable. Such a peerless expert that suddenly appeared is where everyone's doubts lie. But at that time, His Majesty the Saint Monarch said there was no problem, so it ended just like that. Moreover, the calligraphy and Painting Kings, as the inheritors of the Heavenly Imperial Palace, would not lie. It is even more impossible for them to lie about such a big matter. This matter is definitely true without a doubt. Mu Tsanglan looked at the Imperial Palace that was rising like a mushroom cloud in the distance. His eyes were filled with deep worry. He muttered, "And you stay here and watch. I'm going to the Imperial Palace to take a look. The manuscript is gone. Today, I rushed back from father-in-law's house. I started writing at 7 in the evening. But one of my hands is not strong enough. It's just one chapter, so I've been writing until now. Late, sorry." Chapter 2283. Shadow was shocked. "How about I go with you? We can take care of each other. Don't worry, it'll be fine," Mu Tsunglan said indifferently. "If we don't go, or if we go together, a battle will be unavoidable. If I go alone, it'll be fine. Furthermore, even though His Majesty's cultivation is much higher than mine, but from the commotion just now, it is obvious that the 7 kings were fighting against him together. Even if he has great merit, after killing 5 of my guards, I believe that he no longer has enough strength to kill me." Mu Tsunglan took a deep breath. "Although I am willing to believe the Book King's words, if I don't confirm it with my own eyes, I will feel uneasy. If this is true, then so what if Yuan Tianjie is really the Sky Demon?" Shadow asked. "Then I will fight him to the death." Mu Tsunglan hesitated for a moment, then said through gritted teeth, "Then I have to go even more. 2 people have a better chance than 1. Shadow insisted. Mu Tsunglan was silent for a moment. "No, I need you more here. If I die, I need you more. If I don't die, I need you more. I need you to live for me, I don't need you to die for me." Shadow was silent. After a long time, he said bitterly, "All right. Then be careful, don't try to be brave." Mu Tsunglan nodded and floated up. With a whoosh, he flew towards the palace like lightning. Yuan Tianjie was wearing a light yellow robe. His hands were behind his back as he walked through the ruins. Behind him were the officials who were rushing over. Among the officials, the Prime Minister was at the head of the group. At this moment, he was guarding Yuan Tianjie. Although Yuan Tianjie's figure was slightly stooped, the aura he was emitting at this moment was overflowing with killing intent. It was earth-shattering. As time passed, more and more people gathered, but Yuan Tianjie didn't say a word. He just walked through the ruins with large strides. Looking at the countless pieces of flesh scattered around, the people who were shaken to death, smashed to death, and turned into piles of minced meat. The majority of these pieces of flesh belonged to the palace maids, concubines, imperial concubines, imperial granddaughters. No matter how beautiful and charming she was when she was alive, dying under such an unexpected tragedy was simply too horrible to look at. They were all dripping with blood, bones, and flesh. Yuan Tianjie finally stopped moving. His eyes flashed with great reluctance at the flesh and blood scattered all over the palace. A trace of heartfelt pain appeared in the depths of his eyes, as well as a bit of faint disgust. He said indifferently, "The Heart King, Xian Wuhan, led the great protectors in an attempt to rebel, framing this emperor as a sky fiend, and besieging this emperor. After the battle, the 5 kings were killed by me on the spot, while the Book King and Painting King fled. Pass down my order. Immediately search for the 7th king's family and exterminate them. Search for the Painting and Calligraphy kings immediately and kill them at all costs. Anyone who kills either of them will be conferred the title of king and be rewarded with 100,000 purple crystal jade essence. Immediately pacify the military and the government. There must not be any chaos. The bandit suppression operation in the south will continue as normal. Eliminate the rebels as soon as possible and pacify Yun Tian." Prime Minister Yuan Tianjie methodically arranged everything, his voice abnormally calm and steady. He suddenly turned to speak to the Prime Minister. "This official is here." The Prime Minister straightened his body. "Follow Jin." Yuan Tianjie stepped forward, and the Prime Minister followed behind him. Although Yuan Tianjie didn't say anything else, he clearly only pointed at the Prime Minister, which was equivalent to ordering that no one else was allowed to follow. The wind suddenly blew, and Mu Tsunglan landed. "Your Majesty, are you all right?" Mu Tsunglan looked at the ruins of the palace in front of him with a face full of shock. He was dumbfounded and shocked. However, his eyes secretly flashed on Yuan Tianjie's body. Yuan Tianjie stopped and turned around. He looked at Mu Tsanglan with a stupefied expression. He said indifferently, "Does Marshal Mu really not know what happened here?" Mu Tsanglan said respectfully, "For such a disaster to occur in the imperial city, it is a great misfortune for the country. However, this matter came too suddenly and was impossible to guard against. This subject's residence was also completely destroyed by the shockwaves from the accident. This subject arranged for all the generals to gather and immediately rush over to await your Majesty's orders. But what exactly is going on?" Yuan Tianjie looked at him for a while and said in a low voice, "The 7 kings rebelled." After saying this, his eyes were still focused on Mu Tsanglan's face without blinking, as if he wanted to see something on Mu Tsanglan's face. Hearing this, Mu Tsanglan opened his mouth in disbelief. Then, he seemed to react. The 7 kings? The Heart King and the others? The 7 of them rebelled together? Time seemed to have been shocked by this sudden news to the point that he felt a little lost and confused. Yuan Tianjie nodded heavily. Mu Tsanglan immediately cursed. "These traitors! How dare they do such a heaven-defying thing? They deserve to die. They really deserve to die," he said with righteous indignation. "Your Majesty, this old official requests to take charge of the pursuit. We must capture all these traitors and bring them to justice." Yuan Tianjie said with great relief, "General Mu, this matter will naturally not be forgiven for these traitors. Hunting down traitors is everyone's responsibility. There is no need for General Mu to worry." "Yes. Your Majesty is mighty. Traitors and traitors will be condemned by everyone. They will die without a cause," Mu Tsanglan said. "After this old official returns, I will immediately arrange for the capture. We must eliminate the traitors in the shortest time possible and pacify Cloud Sky." The Prime Minister slowly raised his head, his eyes becoming malicious as he looked at Mu Tsanglan. At this moment, this Prime Minister who had always appeared weak suddenly became a ferocious beast, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Mu Tsanglan's eyes narrowed as he looked at the Prime Minister and smiled slightly. Yuan Tianjie did not speak for a long time. After a long time, he took a deep breath and smiled. "Since General Mu has the intention of protecting the country, I am at ease. With General Mu's appearance, the rebellion will definitely be dissolved like ice." Mu Tsanglan was filled with righteous indignation. He immediately got up and left the palace, cursing and swearing all the way back to his residence. While he was still on the way, he sent out orders for all military officers to gather at the general appointment platform. He left very quickly. Yuan Tianjie looked at Mu Tsanglan's departing figure, a cold light flashing in his eyes. In an instant, the cold light was retracted and he regained his composure. But he did not say a word, walking out with the Prime Minister. At this moment, the palace was already in ruins. Even a dog would find it hard to find a place to stay, let alone Lord Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun. So Yuan Tianjie temporarily settled down in the palace. Although the degree of damage here was not small, because it was relatively far away, it was preserved quite a bit. "Your Majesty, that Mu Tsanglan's attitude is not right," the Prime Minister said in a low voice. "When he first requested to capture the enemy, Your Majesty had already tactfully expressed that he did not need to do anything. But he said that he would immediately make arrangements after returning. This kind of action is clearly ignoring the monarch and acting arbitrarily. This is not a good omen." Yuan Tianjie's face darkened as he said indifferently, "When Mu Tsanglan returns this time, and Mo Yun Tian is destined to be divided. He has already made his decision. Also, he believes in my identity as a heavenly demon. It seems that after the painting and calligraphy kings escaped from here, they did not immediately flee. Instead, they went to him and told him about this emperor's true identity. Although I don't know how much they said, they must have said the main points. This emperor is an extraterrestrial heavenly demon. Your Majesty, since that is the case, why didn't you directly capture that old thief? You might as well cut off all future troubles." The Prime Minister narrowed his eyes and asked. As soon as he said that, he saw Yuan Tianjie's originally calm face turn pale. Then, he spat out a mouthful of black blood, his body swaying. Just now, he was still calm and composed, as if he was completely fine. But now, he had already disappeared without a trace. Your Majesty! The Prime Minister was shocked. Yuan Tianjie panted a few times. Do you think I don't want to capture and kill that Mu Tsanglan? Indeed, right now, I am heavily injured and almost cannot suppress my injuries. If I rashly fight with Mu Tsanglan now, regardless of the final outcome, my internal injuries will definitely worsen. I'm afraid that I won't be able to recover even after 100 years. Moreover, my million-year plan must be completed in these few years. How can I suffer such heavy injuries? It will affect the overall situation. Speaking up to here, Yuan Tianjie's eyes revealed an extremely strong hatred. The painting and Heart Kings, those bastards, actually discovered the truth at such a crucial time and started a rebellion. They really deserve to die. Mu Tsanglan will definitely make a big move this time. Prime Minister, you will be in charge of handling this matter. The Prime Minister's eyes flashed, and a dense black aura came out of them. His expression did not change as he said, Tonight, this old official will personally capture and kill Mu Tsanglan. I will vent my anger for your Majesty. Yuan Tianjie coughed a few times and said, You must plan it well and kill him in one strike. The Prime Minister slowly nodded his head. When Mu Tsanglan hurried back to his residence, all the generals had already gathered at the general appointment stage. Dong dong dong. On the general appointment stage, the dull sound of drums continuously sounded. Every sound was like the heavy hammer of an ancient battlefield, heavily pounding on everyone's heart. Chapter 2284. Is everyone here? Mu Tsanglan's expression was abnormal. Strict. Yes. Seal the door. Get in position. Mu Tsanglan shouted. Contrary to his usual calmness, there was a hint of urgency in his voice. Several saints released their auras at the same time, completely sealing off this space. Unless an outsider's strength was strong enough to break through the limit of this seal, it was absolutely impossible to know what was happening in this space. Everyone was bewildered. What was this situation? Why was there a need to make such a big scene? Originally, everyone was suspicious because of the accident that happened not long ago. Now that they saw the usually calm Mu Tsanglan lose his composure, they naturally understood what was going on. Mu Tsanglan quickly walked down from the stage with his hands behind his back. His gaze was like a knife, sweeping across the faces of all the generals. The great change in the imperial city this time, the rebellion of the 7 kings, I'm sure everyone already knows. Mu Tsanglan said in a low voice. Everyone nodded. Everyone present was well informed. How could they not have received news of such an earth-shattering event happening in the imperial city? Their hearts were already in turmoil. 7 kings, those who didn't know might ask, who are the 7 kings? Who are the 7 kings? However, all those who knew the inside story would want to ask in astonishment. The 7 kings are the 7 stars protectors of His Majesty the Sky Emperor. They are practically the symbol of Mo Yuntian's fortune. How could they rebel? Betray him? There was no reason, something that couldn't happen. These people had been loyal to Mo Yuntian for millions of years. How could they rebel together at this time? It was so sudden and without any warning. What exactly had happened? But everyone knew that this matter was extremely sensitive, especially when the 7 Kings Rebellion was personally condemned by Mo Yuntian, Yuan Tianjie. There was absolutely no possibility of a mistake. So even if there were thousands of doubts, no one dared to ask. When they heard Mu Tsanglan's question, they all stretched their necks and pricked up their ears to listen in silence. The reason why the 7 kings rebelled is because... Mu Tsanglan's stern gaze was mixed with endless humiliation. His voice was extremely low as he said heavily, It is because they discovered that the Heavenly Emperor we have served for more than 1,000,000 years, the Heavenly Emperor of Ink Cloud Sky, Yuan Tianming, is actually an extraterrestrial demon. What? How is this possible? That's impossible, right? Sky Fiend? Lord Celestial Emperor is an extraterrestrial demon? This is really unbelievable. Below, there was an uproar. Countless voices of doubt and surprise rose and fell one after another. Originally, this was an important military area. Moreover, everyone was a high-ranking military officer. They had their own military qualities and understood the principle of strict military discipline. No matter what, such a situation should not have happened. However, this sudden news really caused everyone's minds to be in chaos. He couldn't control himself at all. Don't tell me that everyone still doesn't know what kind of people the Seven Kings are. Mu Tsung Lan's face was sorrowful as he slowly explained. This matter was of great importance. He had to analyze it bit by bit. Otherwise, if there was even the slightest bit of doubt in his own troops, there was the possibility of being infiltrated by the enemy. At this moment, Mo Yutian couldn't bear any more accidents. He had to completely eliminate all possibilities. When the explanation was finally finished, everyone looked at each other. Although they knew that the truth was unquestionable, they still hoped that this was just a joke, a misunderstanding, or even a nightmare. At the same time, a strong sense of grief and humiliation quickly grew. The unrealistic feeling of a dream filled everyone's hearts. The Seven Kings have already confirmed that 5 people have sacrificed their lives on the spot in order to slay the demon, Mu Tsunglan said solemnly. It's a pity that the heavenly demon's power is unfathomable. The Seven Kings gave it their all, but they were still unable to succeed. Everyone, in Cloud Sky's future is now on the shoulders of all of us. If even we can hold on, perhaps then, in Cloud Sky will become the second Purple Cloud Sky. Mu Tsunglan sighed. However, what kind of heroes are the people of Purple Cloud Sky? The Heavenly Emperor of Purple Cloud, Zi Hao, fought a bloody battle until the last soldier, never giving up. The tens of millions of soldiers of Purple Cloud Sky all died on the battlefield. Every one of them was an unyielding heroic spirit. They were all undying heroic spirits. Even though their souls don't exist now, their names will be immortalized for eternity. But what about us? Mu Tsunglan's voice, which was already unusually low, became even more hoarse. If we die here today, we are just a bunch of fools from head to toe, who are not worthy of pity, sympathy, or even admiration and praise. When future generations talk about us, if they have good intentions, they will say that they are just a bunch of ignorant people who have been deceived. And the straightforward ones will only say that we are just a bunch of fools. As if we have no brains at all. We worked for the heavenly demon for 1,000,000 years, and were killed by the heavenly demon. Not only did we give our lives to the heavenly demon, but we also gave the entire Cloud Sky to the heavenly demon for nothing. Even though they died foolishly, they deserved to die. It's not worth feeling pity. Mu Tsunglan's hair and beard flew. Are you all willing to accept this ending? We are not willing. All the generals shouted in unison. They all felt their blood boiling. As long as they thought of the possible consequences, everyone was so angry that they couldn't control themselves. We definitely can't accept such an ending. Even if we die, we will kill the heavenly demon and the heavenly demon. Even if we die, we will wash away our humiliation. Even if our souls die, we will protect Cloud Sky. Even if our souls die, and we are beyond redemption, we will completely kill the heavenly demon and the heavenly demon. We will wash away the humiliation of being deceived for 1,000,000 years. General Mu! Give the order! Mu Tsunglan slapped the table and stood up. He shouted, That's right! We are not willing to accept such a humiliating ending. Even if we die, we will kill the heavenly demon and the heavenly demon. No matter what, we will protect our homeland, Cloud Sky. We were once foolish. We were once deceived by someone. But in the end, we are still Mo Yuntian's great men. Yes. 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 Everyone shouted. We are still the people of Heaven Imperial Court. We are still the natural protectors of this world. Mu Tsunglan's eyes were like lightning. Who will follow me to fight the heavenly demon? Who will follow me to restore ink cloud sky? Who will fight side by side with me? Who will follow me to take revenge and wash away our humiliation? Me! 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 Soldiers, listen up! Mu Tsang-lan suddenly stood up. His posture was tall and straight, like a lofty mountain, majestic and unshakable. He was no longer in a daze. He reappeared the supreme demeanor of Ink Cloud Sky's General Mu, the god of war. Yes! Immediately! Prepare for battle! Immediately, organize the army and withdraw from the imperial capital. Today, announce to the world that we will kill the heavenly demon and defend the Tao. Immediately, we will fight the heavenly demon and the heavenly demon to the death. Yes! Kill the heavenly demon and defend the Tao. We will fight the heavenly demon and the heavenly demon to the death. Move! All the troops, gather outside the south gate in the evening. Yes! With a whoosh, the generals hurriedly dispersed. Mu Tsang-lan watched the generals leave like the wind. His eyes were heavy again. Shadow! Yes! I want to ask you for a favor. Send my family and Meng Wuya's family out of the city as soon as possible, the faster the better. Mu Tsang-lan said in a low voice. What about you, General Mu? I want to stay here. Mu Tsang-lan said indifferently. The Prime Minister has been standing with Yuan Tianjie since the beginning. Their positions are clear and they know what to do. It's just that they can't make a move. Since we have already started to move, they will definitely start to move as well. I want to stay here and restrain the Prime Minister. It's too dangerous to do that. If the other party wants to make a move, they must be confident. Shadow was shocked. Don't worry, I won't die. Mu Tsang-lan said indifferently. As long as Yuan Tianjie doesn't die, I will keep this old life and fight him to the death. Unless Yuan Tianjie dies, this humiliation will never be washed away. If I die before he does... Mu Tsang-lan laughed bitterly and said word by word. I really won't die in peace. Hearing this, Shadow was relieved. Since Mu Tsang-lan said so, then he definitely won't die. When one's cultivation reached Mu Tsang-lan's level and he was in an environment he was familiar with, unless he decided to fight to the death, as long as he wanted to leave, even Yuan Tianjie would not be able to stop him. If I don't stay and use myself as bait, the Prime Minister will most likely make a move on the others, and they definitely won't be able to stop him. Mu Tsang-lan snorted. But with me here, he definitely won't dare to make a move on others. Because he's afraid of me being the Oriole. Heavenly demons and demons will always place their own safety as their number one priority. Shadow agreed and turned to leave. Mu Tsang-lan's heart was already half at ease when he saw his family gather together and fly out silently under Ying's lead. There were a few other saint experts in this group. With Shadow's protection, and him staying here to restrain the enemy's main force, this trip was foolproof. Mu Tsang-lan's robes fluttered as he stood on the roof and let out a long howl. The howl came out of nowhere and soared into the sky. In an instant, the entire imperial city could hear Marshal Mu Tsang-lan's howl. The howl meant to urge his own people to leave quickly. It meant to inform the enemy, but tell the Prime Minister. Tell that demon Yuan Tianjie. I'm still here. I, Mu Tsang-lan, am still here. If I don't move, let's see who dares to move. Chapter 2285. Mu Tsang-lan's surging battle intent, which had been dormant for hundreds of thousands of years, erupted like a raging wildfire. In fact, it was not just battle intent. In an instant, his soul, cultivation, and killing intent were all set ablaze. Thirst for battle. Prime Minister, are you still not coming? It was already evening. The entire imperial city was silent and extremely quiet. It was as if nothing had happened. However, silence did not equate to stability or safety. The quiet atmosphere was a heavy and oppressive aura. This aura enveloped the entire city. Such a powerful aura. Mu Tsunglan was standing on the roof with his hands behind his back. In the courtyard, there was a man in black. This man was Mu Tsunglan's personal guard. Everyone had left. All the military experts had left the city. The only one left was the one who had accompanied Mu Tsunglan through life and death, the great guard who had never been separated from him. This team of 120 people had died one after another in this million-year battle. In the end, only this person was left. However, this person was a top expert who had been through countless battles. Fighting war, to them, was just a common occurrence. At this moment, even though they were about to face the largest and most tragic battle in Mo Yuntian's history, their faces were calm and unperturbed. Wherever Commander Mu is, we will be there. Between them, there was no need to use words to communicate. They only needed one look and one action to understand each other. Tonight, blood will dye the imperial city red, Mu Tsunglan said faintly. He remained silent, as if he was unmoved. However, the look in his eyes suddenly became abnormally intense. They are already here. Mu Tsunglan smiled faintly. Mu Tsunglan had just finished speaking when he heard a loud cry from afar. A clear voice said, "Shout, shout!" Tsunglan waves in the sky. Yi's cold wind blows the falling moon. Two heroes stand side by side on the dark clouds. Loyal heart and iron bones cast the heavenly palace. Mu Tsunglan, I am here. That was the voice of Prime Minister Iluowe. This was originally a poem that Yuan Tianjie improvised back then. He even embedded the names of Mu Tsunglan and Iluowe into it. It could be said to be the highest praise for the two of them. In fact, before today, this poem was a symbol of glory for Mu Tsunglan. But at this moment, when Mu Tsunglan heard this poem again, he instantly felt as if his insides were burning. An unprecedented feeling of humiliation filled his heart. Iluowe, since you're here, you might as well come out. Mu Tsunglan's eyes flashed as he shouted in a deep voice. Hee hee! A clear and elegant laughter rang out. Suddenly, a green robe appeared in the distant sky. His green robe fluttered in the wind, as if he had come with the wind and the moon, looking elegant and unrestrained. The moment Iluowe saw this green robe, her figure had already landed on a roof 100 feet away. She looked at Mu Tsunglan from afar. Her stooped body and white hair swayed gently in the wind. Her face was full of wrinkles, but a pair of bright eyes sparkled as she looked at Mu Tsunglan. Mu Tsunglan, you're old. I'm old too. Iluowe sighed softly. Why do we have to rebel like this before we die? Destroy a lifetime's reputation and leave behind countless helplessness. Mu Tsunglan's gaze was like a knife. Iluowe, I believe this is the last time I'll call you Iluowe. Because I want to ask you, what is your real name? Iluowe narrowed her eyes and smiled. Mu Tsunglan, it seems that you've really become muddle-headed. You already know my name. It's so catchy, but you're wasting time asking? Muddle-headed, muddle-headed. Hee hee. Mu Tsunglan stared at her with a sharp gaze. Since that's the case, there's nothing to say between us. Do it! Iluowe suddenly laughed loudly. Mu Tsunglan, you're a traitor now. As a traitor you can still be so righteous? Mu Tsunglan said coldly. Traitor? As an extraterritorial demon, how dare you be so arrogant in the heavenly imperial court? Iluowe laughed heartily. Otherworldly demon? You're joking. Mu Tsunglan said coldly. Whether I'm joking or not, we both know. Why deceive ourselves? Ha ha. Iluowe laughed heartily, rocking back and forth. His figure and face suddenly changed strangely in this laughter. His head full of white hair suddenly turned as black as ink, and his wrinkled old face became as smooth as jade in an instant. The wind blew, and his black hair fluttered. A jade ribbon tied his hair, making him look handsome and extraordinary. His nose was like a hanging gallbladder, his eyes like bright stars, his face as white as jade, and he was as handsome as a tree in the wind. He turned from an old man into an elegant man in the blink of an eye. With a loud laugh, he straightened his waist and his entire body suddenly stood upright on the roof. His entire body slowly floated into the air. The wind was biting cold. His beard and hair fluttered, and his clothes fluttered. An abnormally powerful and biting cold aura suddenly filled the air. Iluwa had her hands behind her back as she stared intently at Mu Tsung Lan's ferocious attacks. There was no longer any emotion in her eyes, but her elegant voice continued to ring out. Mu Tsung Lan, I never imagined that after 1,000,000 years of friendship, we would still have to fight in the end. Mu Tsung Lan lowered his head, and looked longingly at the residence he had lived in for 1,000,000 years. He said softly, People of different paths cannot work together. After speaking, he suddenly looked up. He stared straight at Iluwa, and his voice was like metal clashing. It is everyone's responsibility to slaughter the otherworldly demons and evildoers. Who is the otherworldly demon? Iluwa laughed in the air. Her laughter rumbled and covered the sky. You, Mu Tsung Lan, are the otherworldly demon. Mu Tsung Lan sneered disdainfully. Mu Tsung Lan is a spy from the otherworldly demons who infiltrated Mo Yuntian. He concealed his identity, and for 1,000,000 years he used all kinds of schemes and methods to frame countless loyal people and finally climbed to a high position. Now, the otherworldly demon army is about to invade. You, Mu Tsung Lan, as the spy, naturally have to cooperate and fabricate all kinds of lies to confuse the people, intending to start a rebellion and commit treason. Today, I am under the orders of His Majesty the Celestial Emperor to kill this traitor. Everyone has the right to kill a traitor. At this moment, Iluwa was as elegant as jade. She stood in the air and spoke with assurance. Her voice was clear and spread in all directions. Mu Tsung Lan only sneered at this. He really did not want to waste any more time on such words that distorted the truth. If he could use force, why would he need to fight? In the end, wouldn't he have to use his fists to speak? Attack! At Iluwa's shout, the wind whistled and hundreds of white-robed people suddenly appeared. The first 3 people had just appeared and turned into 3 long rainbows, charging at Mu Tsung Lan. Kill! Below them, the Grand Guard was like a black whirlwind that transformed into a neat black rainbow that intercepted the enemies that were charging from all directions. Without a single word, they directly launched a killing blow upon coming face to face. This gave people the illusion that the white-robed people charging over were the ones being attacked. However, this single person was the one who was attacking. This person's attack pattern was simply crazy. The moment they attacked together, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, white, and black appeared in the air. It was really like a colorful rainbow. Following which, streams of blood spurted out with a piu-piu sound. The people charging over on Iluwa's side were all shouting and shouting to kill. Clearly, they were strengthening their momentum. However, the people on Mu Tsung Lan's side did not make any sound. It was as if momentum, and power were meaningless to them. For a moment, they flew everywhere, constantly changing positions. They were really skilled at changing their positions. Although they were at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers, they actually created countless afterimages in the air. At a glance, they seemed to have more people than Iluwa's side. Countless weapons had been smashed into smithereens the moment they clashed. At this level, there were very few divine weapons that could withstand a strike from them with all their cultivation bases. It was just a face-off, but all the buildings in the marshal's residence collapsed without exception. Even the foundations were shaken out of the ground and scattered in the air. One of the black-robed men remained silent. His figure that was originally moving at high speed suddenly stopped. With a wave of his hands, all the broken walls in the air suddenly gathered in his hands as if they had a life of their own. With a casual rub, it turned into a huge stick that was several tens of feet long and several tens of feet thick. Just like that, it covered the head and the face, and without any explanation, it smashed down with the stick. His opponent, a white-clothed man, received the blow with both of his palms. With a hong sound, the white-clothed man staggered back. The black-clothed man also let out a muffled groan. However, he continued to move forward. When he arrived in the sky, the stick that had been shattered by the blow just now condensed in his hand again. Then, he ruthlessly smashed down with the stick again. Illuwe sneered slightly, looking at the fierce battle in the air. Her green robe was still spotless, her face like jade, still calm. Mu Tsunglan stood in the air, staring at Illuwe like a hawk. He did not care about the battle around him. Both of them knew that the other was their true mortal enemy. As long as he was slightly distracted, half of his troops would be destroyed under the other's attack. Keeping an eye on his biggest enemy was equivalent to protecting his subordinates. Mu Tsunglan, I still don't understand one thing. Illuwe looked at the battle, her voice exceptionally soft as if she was discussing something with an old friend. Why don't you let these people participate in the battle? No matter what the battle is, no one outside the military is allowed to participate. What is this logic? But now I finally understand. Chapter 2286. Illuwe shook her head with a wry smile. I see. Look at the people fighting. On the Xing family's side, there are also top-notch experts in my mansion. Even though the majority of them are weaker than your guards, my 10 commanders are definitely at the same level as them. In fact, they might even be stronger than them. But right now, with those 10 commanders as the leaders, they are leading 300 subordinates. Yet they are being held back by you alone. They are even at a disadvantage for a short period of time. Mu Tsunglan sneered. Oh? I finally understand. The strength that they gain through bitter cultivation and constant sparring, and the strength that the army gains through constant killing on the battlefield, are completely different. Illuwe sighed deeply. The army's experts, their battle awareness, experience, and fearlessness, as well as their almost instinctive dodging movements, are all abilities that my subordinates do not have. Your people have already formed an instinct to avoid life and death injuries. In the process of battle, they do not need to think at all. They can naturally dodge and counterattack. But for my people, they need to use experience, martial arts, and movement techniques to think. This is the difference. A huge difference. This difference is really too huge. Illuwe raised her head gracefully and looked at Mu Tsunglan. So you have already thought of today's battle 1,000,000 years ago. Mu Tsunglan, you are indeed a scheming and far-sighted person. The extraterrestrial demons really didn't choose the wrong person to be their spy. Mu Tsunglan smiled faintly and was full of mockery. As for who is the real spy of the extraterrestrial demons, this old man does not care to argue with you. However, what you said earlier is completely wrong. A complete misjudgment. This old man is not so scheming to be able to predict today's changes. But this old man is a soldier. War belongs only to soldiers. It does not belong to the pugilistic world. And it does not belong to anyone else. Before we soldiers are all dead, it will only be our shame if other people participate in the war. Protecting our country and our territory is the duty of us soldiers. If we still have to rely on these Jianghu experts to fight in the war, then what's the use of us soldiers? Mu Tsunglan was proud but also a little sad. Luowe, this is the pride of a soldier. People like you will never understand. In normal times, some of us can be ruffians in the army, and some of us can also break the law. Some of us can even go to jail and be beheaded. But as long as the war comes, the first to rush up will definitely be us. We can only be us. Only us. Even if the person we chose to be loyal to is wrong, the Moutian we chose to protect is not wrong. We've been in the army since we were young. We've been through 1,000,000 years. Who knows how many times we've changed? How many people have died? How many brothers have been buried in the sand? Only after countless trials and tribulations did we finally condense the soul of the army we have today. Now, these undefeatable warriors who have survived tens of thousands of battles are gathered. We were originally powerful, but in the end, the source came from the higher-ups. All of our efforts have turned into a joke. What a joke! Mu Tsunglan chuckled, his voice sorrowful. According to Luowe, you are a heavenly demon. That's why you don't understand. People like us don't have as many schemes as you. From the beginning to the end, we only have perseverance and pride. This pride belongs to the army. No one can replace it. Mu Tsanglan pointed at the battlefield proudly. You have far more people under you than us, and you have more experts of the same level. I only have 2 people on my side. But do you dare to make a bet with me? Let's bet on who will win in the end. I don't dare. Iluwa shook her head honestly and smiled. Because I can see that if I don't have any other tricks up my sleeve, the final winner of today's battle will definitely be your great guard. Even if only one of them is breathing in the end, everyone on my side will have already become corpses. Iluwa said. These words were said with great sincerity. Ha ha. Mu Tsanglan laughed proudly and sorrowfully. Heavenly demon clown. How can you know where the soul of my heaven palace is? How can you know the roots of my heaven palace? How can you know the pride of my heaven palace? Even if we have internal strife. Even if we kill each other. Even if we are dissatisfied with reality. But, as long as we are facing you, every one of us is a warrior. We are all proud. Our pride, our roots. Our souls. Our heaven palace. In our hearts. Heaven palace in our hearts. Mu Tsanglan roared loudly. I will not be defeated. At this point in the battle, some of the Great Guard were already riddled with injuries, but at this moment, they replied in unison. This was the first time they had spoken since the battle started. There were only 3 words. Only one person. That aura was majestic and awe-inspiring. It really was like 1,000,000 people charging in unison, unstoppable. Mu Tsanglan was satisfied and laughed heartily. Iluwa, do you understand? Do you know that my army has been on the battlefield for 27 million years? In every battle, no matter who the enemy is, the imaginary enemy in our hearts is actually the heavenly demons. It's you bastards. Mu Tsanglan reached out and pointed at Iluwa, his voice like a thunderclap. Iluwa was still not angry. She just stared at Mu Tsanglan and suddenly laughed. Mu Tsanglan, I know you are fighting for time. So am I. But I have already fought for the time I need, but you haven't, have you? She suddenly flew into the air, her green robes fluttering. She shouted softly, Kill! With a loud rumble, tens of thousands of troops suddenly charged over from all directions. The tide of people surged, and it was unknown how many more there were. There seemed to be no end. Iluwa's figure gracefully flew towards Mu Tsanglan. She spread her hands and 10 streaks of silver light suddenly appeared. They seemed to have a life of their own as they circled around and flew towards Mu Tsanglan. Every ray of silver light contained a tyrannical power that could almost destroy the heavens and earth. Mu Tsanglan, just wait and see. Just wait and see. Just wait and see. Just wait and see your great guards all die here. Iluwa laughed, and then lowered her voice. The ones charging over now are all your dark cloud heaven's native compatriots. Ha ha ha, compatriots, you guys always like to use this word. But I wonder if your butcher's knife can still cut down your compatriots who don't know the truth? Ha! Heavenly demons and demons, despicable and shameless. Mu Tsanglan rose to meet them. His burly body swept through the air, and a rainbow suddenly appeared in his hand. His face was even colder. In the face of right and wrong, anyone who stands against us is our enemy. Killing them is their rightful end. He sneered. Iluwa, if you want to see me in a dilemma, then you have miscalculated. Iluwa laughed loudly. Come. For 1,000,000 years, we have been fighting side by side in dark cloud heaven, but we still haven't decided who is better. Let's decide it today. As they spoke, the 2 people's energy collided in the air. All of a sudden, a series of strange cracks appeared on the ground with crackling sounds. In the air, waves of black light flashed randomly. That was because the energy collided, and a large space crack appeared in the air. On the ground and in the air, the 2 sides that were fighting seemed to have encountered a hurricane, and were swaying left and right. Iluwa! Mu Tsanglan shouted, his beard and halberd spread. Take out your heavenly demon's secret technique. You are still not my match with this move. Even in such an intense fight, Iluwa still maintained her elegance and smiled politely. I'm afraid that may not be the case. In the air, the two people rolled and rolled into a ball, and were locked in a fierce fight. On the ground, the senior guard's situation was becoming more and more dangerous. There were more and more enemies, and he could no longer move as freely as before. He could be drowned in the crowd at any time. Since these people were chosen by Iluwa to deal with Mu Tsunglan, how could there be people with low cultivation? Any one of them was a top expert. Mu Tsunglan looked at them one by one, and his heart was burning with anxiety. But he had no other way now. Because Iluwa's powerful cultivation was enough to tie him down. He really wanted to, but he was powerless and could do nothing. As the battle was in a stalemate, the sky slowly darkened. The fighting here was also becoming more and more intense. Finally, dust rose in the city, as if there were thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers moving together. From many different positions they rolled towards the south gate. Without a doubt, that was the signal that the orders of the generals had been sufficiently carried out, and the officers of all levels had started to move. This was because this matter needed to be secretly linked together. Although it seemed a little late, to be able to activate it all in such a short period of time was enough to prove that Mu Tsunglan's position in the military was unshakable. And the meticulous Iluwa obviously also noticed this. She frowned and tilted her head thoughtfully. Mu Tsunglan knew a lot about this old colleague of his who had been a subject of the same palace for millions of years. He immediately shouted, "Guards!" Below, the senior guard, who was riddled with scars, replied at the same time, "Here." Iluwa obviously had a premonition of a possible change. Almost at the same time, she warned loudly, "Stop them! Drip blood to attack!" But almost at the same time, it was still not the same time. A difference of a millimeter could accomplish many things. Iluwa's warning was too late. Chapter 2287. Iluwa knew that something was amiss. She stopped fighting Mu Tsunglan and flew away. She fell like a whirlwind. Her target was moving separately. Clearly, she was trying to create some kind of formation. Clearly, the key had shifted to that person. However, Mu Tsunglan's lips curled into a mysterious smile. He moved like a shadow and chased after Iluwa. He landed on the ground and suddenly roared, "Heavenly demon! Give me your life!" His palms danced like a whirlwind. Suddenly, from the sky, from the ground, and from the air, countless sharp blades appeared silently. Each blade was mixed with an unusually sharp sonic boom. They cut open spatial cracks in the void and whistled over with unparalleled momentum. Behind each saber, there seemed to be a flame accompanying it. That was because the speed of the blade itself was simply too fast. The intense friction caused by the extreme speed had ignited the surrounding air. This was the only move that Mu Tsunglan had revealed to others that made him famous, Void Blade Soul. Whenever this move was used in battle, it would cause the deaths of at least tens of thousands of people every time it was used. It was unparalleled in power, and its power was even more intense. Iluwa suddenly felt that she was being attacked by no less than hundreds of thousands of weapons at the same time. Even though her cultivation was at the divine realm, she did not dare to rashly take the full blow of Mu Tsunglan, who was at the same level. Such a sea of blades was definitely enough to break her elemental energy defense and pierce her body. Moreover, the remaining energy could even penetrate her body. Although Iluwa was absolutely sure that she would not lose her life because of this, she was very unwilling to be injured like this. She had no choice but to let out a clear whistle. Her body spun like a whirlwind. As she dodged, she suddenly formed a powerful tornado. At the same time, the flashlight flashed and accurately knocked away each blade. However, the situation changed again. Even someone as strong as her could only protect herself and could not attack. This was the effect that Mu Tsunglan wanted. With a flash of his body, several phantoms appeared at the same time. They rushed to the battlefield and swept across. In an instant, all the senior guards were gathered together. He shouted in a low voice, "Get ready! In the next moment, a palm turned into a beam of white light. The white light was blazing as it ruthlessly smashed into the depths of the ground. The white light flashed and disappeared. The people surrounding him had no idea what he was trying to do. They attacked the area below, but there was no enemy there. Just as he was thinking, suddenly, a loud rumbling sound came from the depths of the ground. This explosion was extraordinarily violent. The entire piece of land that was hundreds of feet deep was completely lifted up by this explosion. The land within a radius of hundreds of miles flew up neatly into the air. Screams rang out everywhere. A mushroom cloud slowly rose into the air. No one would have thought that Mu Tsung-lan would have buried so many explosives under his own house. Looking at the power of this wave of explosives, the most conservative estimate of the buried gunpowder was at least a few 100,000 kilograms. The entire marshal's mansion was instantly turned into a huge crater. Of all the people that had participated in this attack, a small portion had been injured in the previous battle and their souls scattered. The rest were also heavily injured. There were only a few that were able to escape unscathed. By the time Prime Minister Iloyue's green-robed figure emerged from the smoke, Mu Tsang-lan and his bodyguard had already disappeared without a trace. Iloyue's face was as calm as water. She looked at the mess on the ground and her subordinates covered in wounds. Her gaze was as cold as ice. Suddenly, she snorted coldly and left. The green robe that left was still untainted by a speck of dust, elegant and otherworldly. Along the way, her body became stooped again. Her hair turned white as if she was an old woman. At the South City Gate. The city gate that was completely covered in soul-setting iron and built by tens of thousands of experts, which was originally thought to be immortal for thousands of years, had completely collapsed. Mu Tsung-lan's hands were behind his back. His towering figure stood in the ruins as he watched the thousands of soldiers and horses leave the city. His gaze was like lightning. With Mu Tsung-lan in charge of bringing up the rear, the soldiers who left the city were all in high spirits. They no longer hesitated. All of them were in high spirits as they flew out. When they passed by Mu Tsung-lan, everyone respectfully saluted him. Although there were many people, they were orderly and did not panic at all. Mu Tsung-lan's black robe fluttered as he looked at the ruins in front of him with a complicated gaze. Looking at the imperial city that he had fought for his entire life to protect, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. Once upon a time, he had given his all to protect this piece of heaven and earth. Henceforth, he would be absolutely irreconcilable with this world. This was clearly the land that he deeply loved. Unless there was a day when Yuan Tianji's identity, as the heavenly demon, could be revealed to the world without a doubt, and everyone had to acknowledge him, then he would be able to wash away the stain of traitor. Otherwise, before that, he could only carry this shameful title for a long time and continue to walk down this path. It was very likely that he would not be able to wash it clean even when he died. At this moment, he suddenly remembered something he had not seen in a long time. Meng Ye. His heart was filled with envy for no reason. Meng Wuye had left one step earlier. Although he had suffered an unjust injustice, he had escaped the control of the heavenly demon puppet earlier than him. Mu Tsung-lan stood there quietly, his thoughts drifting. For a moment, he felt a little sad, a little bitter, and a little lost. What should he do from now on? Yuan Tianji actually did not make any corresponding response to the rebellion of the army this time. This reality made Mu Tsung-lan even more certain that Yuan Tianji was definitely heavily injured in the rebellion of the Seven Kings. Yuan Tianji did not appear at all, and the hidden prime minister also left after a battle. Looking at the entire Yuntian, there was no longer any power that could stop Mu Tsung-lan. However, Mu Tsung-lan really did not have the ability to kill Yuan Tianji in one fell swoop. Both sides could only wait silently, waiting for the other side to reveal a flaw. Waiting for the future. But both sides could feel that after this battle, no matter what the result was, Yuntian's vitality would be greatly damaged. Perhaps Yuan Tianji didn't stop it now because he wanted to avoid this result of his vitality being greatly damaged? After this battle, no matter who won or lost, they would almost be unable to continue fighting. At that time, once the heavenly demons invaded, there would be one less power in the army that resisted the heavenly demons. Mu Tsunglan thought of this and felt sad. But even if he knew that this would be the outcome, this civil war was still imperative, and it had to be carried out urgently. It was already late at night. 700 miles outside the city. Dense forest. General Mu, what should we do next? A general stood up and asked. Take the route south, and absorb our army along the way. The army's vanguard will be pointed at Yuqi's troops. If Yuqi can repent, we will give him a chance. If not, we can only destroy him. Before the righteous cause, we must be decisive. Then, we will join forces with Xie Danqiong and gather the superior forces to attack the north. We will eliminate the heavenly demon, Yuan Tianji, and pacify Yuntian. Mu Tsunglan's gaze was resolute. His grief was suppressed, but it was vast. This battle will cause countless lives to be lost. But we already have no other choice. Yes, we already have no other choice. No other choice. Yes, everyone was like this. They had no other choice. And Mo Yuntian and Mu Tsunglan's people had no other choice but to eliminate Yuan Tianji. Xie Danqiong also had no other choice now. And Yuan Tianji, as a heavenly demon, also had no other choice. This night is destined to be a bloody battle. If we win, the world will celebrate. If we lose, bones will litter the ground. Xie Danqiong was covered in blood as he stood in front of the similarly wounded troops. His expression was solemn, but there was silent fatigue. So, we have no other choice but to fight to the death. Because behind us are already our loved ones. We must win everything. The most precious protection. Xie Danqiong's voice was heavy. Below, everyone was silent. During this period of time, Xie Danqiong always took the lead in every battle. He was the first to rush into the enemy's formation and the last to retreat. In the bloody battles, he put himself in danger several times in order to save the soldiers on his side. He died countless times. This kind of charisma had long been formed. Those Dream Slayer army soldiers who had no choice but to come over were slightly repulsed by their new commander at the beginning. Later they looked on coldly from the sidelines. Then, they slowly integrated with him and finally accepted him wholeheartedly now. It could be said that Xie Danqiong's charisma had conquered them. Thinking back, General Meng also led us to charge and break through the enemy lines in the past. Now General Meng was wronged outside. We won't be able to see him for a while. To be able to accept the leadership of a person like Chief Xie, it could be said that we didn't cast pearls before swine. But at this moment, due to the continuous attacks of Yu Lai, although Xie Danqiong and the others were also good at fighting, they were still outnumbered. In the continuous bloody battles, Xie Danqiong and the others came back from the brink of death time and time again. They fought back from the brink of death time and time again, ambushed the enemy time and time again. They were defeated time and time again, but they fought again and again. In the past few months, they had eliminated more than 2 million enemies. However, they had lost 800 of their own men. Xie Danqiong's side had also gradually reached the end of the road. They were gradually forced to the brink of exhaustion. Now, even if they had thousands of brilliant plans, they had less than 200,000 wounded soldiers. Facing the encirclement of 3 million enemies, they were already helpless. If they retreated one more line of defense, they would reach their base camp. If they were captured by the enemy, all the old, weak, women, and children would be slaughtered. They would have no power to resist. Listening to Xie Danqiong's words, everyone's eyes turned red. I will fight to the death with you. Xie Danqiong's heart suddenly became clear and transparent as he spoke these words. It was as if he had let go of something, and also as if he had been freed from something. Chapter 2288. Everyone's eyes were shining brightly. Their leader could have broken through the siege by himself. There was no doubt that he had the strength to do so. If Xie Danqiong wanted to retreat, no one would be able to stop him even if there were millions of soldiers in front of him. However, Xie Danqiong still made such a choice. This was an explanation. No one tried to persuade him because everyone knew that persuasion would be useless. Xie Danqiong was as handsome as a woman, but once he had made up his mind, even a bull couldn't pull him back. Just like how he had been leading the charge in the previous battles until now. He was such a person. To be able to follow our leader in this life, I have no regrets even if I die. Everyone bowed at the same time. I hope we can be brothers in the next life. I hope we can still be together in the next life, gallop in Jianghu, and conquer the world. We are willing to repay you with our lives. We will follow you in life and death. We will never leave you. I hope we can be brothers in the next life. These words touched Xie Danqiong's heart. He didn't speak for a long time. There was an indescribable bitterness in his heart. Xie Danqiong quietly looked up at the sky for a long time. Then, he finally said in a heavy voice, "I'm sorry." His voice was distant and calm. He didn't know who he was apologizing to. "I'm sorry to all of you. Because you followed me, you had to suffer such a calamity. I'm sorry to my wife. I used to think, no, I was sure that we would be able to meet in Tian, Quebec. But now, it seems that we can't. I'm sorry to my big brother. Big brother Chu, I always believed that I could laugh proudly with you, and create an immortal legend that would last for thousands of years. But I misspoke. Sometimes, a person's strength is limited. I can't do it. I'm sorry to my brothers. I thought I could stand at the peak with you, and laugh at the world. But I will fall one step ahead of you today." Xie Danqiong unconsciously recited in a low voice. "When we are happy, we sing and shout together. When the wind rises, we gallop in Jianghu together. When facing a strong enemy, we go through fire and water together. When facing danger, we go through a sea of fire and a mountain of blades together. If brother has a problem, I will draw my sword. If brother is in trouble, I won't return even if I die. If brother is by my side, I will be invincible." The expression on Xie Danqiong's handsome face at this moment was very warm and bright. Torches flickered all around, illuminating Xie Danqiong's tranquil face. Everyone was silent. "If you become a legend one day, I hope that I will be part of your legend. If I become a legend one day, I hope you'll be one of my legends." Xie Danqiong smiled gently and warmly. The faces of his brothers slowly slid past his eyes. "Actually, how I wish I had you guys by my side right now, that way, I will be even more fearless." Now, even though there was still no fear, there was still a lot of loneliness and regret. "I'm Xie Danqiong, Qianghua Xie Danqiong. I was born in the Chongtian continent for 3.5 years. From a mere martial great master, I climbed all the way to revered martial artist, martial king, martial emperor, martial saint, and finally, revered martial artist. He ascended to the heavens and walked step by step until today, breaking through to the saint realm. My big brother helped me along the way. My brothers will accompany me. There are also countless bloody battles. If the heavens want me dead, brothers don't come. If the heavens don't want me dead, I can still laugh proudly." A face that he hadn't seen for a long time seemed to appear in front of Xie Danqiong's eyes. Chu Yang. In a daze, Chu Yang's eyes were as firm as before, as if telling him word by word. "No matter when. No matter how bad the environment is. But you can't give up. As long as your heart is there, there's hope. Never give up." Xie Danqiong nodded firmly. "Chief, can we request for more help from those who are secretly providing information?" someone asked nervously. "No." Xie Danqiong smiled warmly. "They're just an intelligence organization after all. They may not have any significant fighting power. I'm already very grateful that they've been providing us with information along the way. If I ask for more, I won't be able to get past myself. Since they don't want to reveal their identities, then they must continue to live in murky cloud sky. As men, how can we drag our benefactors who have helped us to the grave with us? There's no need to mention this again." The person who spoke lowered his head in shame. Xie Danqiong thought. "Those people, if I'm not wrong, should be Mo Tianji's subordinates, or Chu Yang's people. They can't come over themselves, but they still sent people over. But now, we're already at the end of the road. To be honest, even if we have accurate information, it's useless. So, why should we drag our brother's subordinates to the grave with us? It's also good to preserve some strength for our brothers. There's no need to sacrifice in vain. Outside, the war drums were suddenly beaten. The sound of battle cries that shook the heavens resounded. Everyone's expression turned cold. Is that moment finally coming? Xie Danqiong stood up and said, Brothers, the last wave of fierce battle has arrived. Bring wine, let's have a toast first. On the road to hell, let's drink and chat. In this last battle, let's see who kills the most enemies. When the time comes, let's compete. Originally, everyone had sunk into a heavy and desolate atmosphere, but with Xie Danqiong's words, they all relaxed. That's right. This is indeed a competition. Song K, you're definitely not as good as me. Fuck your mother's bullshit. You think you can beat me with your sickly bare appearance? You're delusional. Stop arguing. Someone said seriously. I, the champion, haven't even spoken yet. What are you arguing for? TSK. Just you? Ha ha, good wine. It's really good wine. Everyone laughed loudly. Smack. A wine bowl fell to the ground and smashed into pieces. Xie Danqiong was the first to stand up. His expression was solemn as he recited softly. Let this battle become our never-ending legend in the Heaven Imperial Court. Ha! That's right, let this battle become a never-ending legend in Heaven Imperial Court. Everyone followed behind Xie Danqiong and strode towards the front line. They didn't look back. The viburnum flowers bloomed as Xie Danqiong recited. When we're happy, let's sing and shout together. Wherever the wind rises. With my brothers by my side, I'm invincible. Invincible! A group of people walked out with their blood boiling. Facing the cold wind, everyone's heart was surging. Perhaps, this will be the last battle in Heaven Imperial Court in my life. Just like what Head Xie said, let our final battle become a legend in the Heaven Tower. Everyone walked out in awe. Chapter 2289. Far away, in the military tent, Mo Yuntian's commander Yuqi waved his hand. Pass down the order. The army does not move. The rest of the army, attack from all sides. The only thing is that we must use the wolf pack tactic to completely defeat the enemy. Yes. The sound of drums shook the sky. Countless soldiers and horses rushed out from the dense forest. In the sky, countless experts flew out continuously. Sword light and saber energy soared into the sky. Both sides were rapidly approaching each other. High up in the sky, a cluster of viburnum flowers suddenly bloomed. The viburnum flowers were incomparably beautiful. They were so beautiful that they were breathtaking and enchanting. However, such a breathtaking and beautiful scene also had a lethal power that could take people's lives. A handsome figure turned into a shocking rainbow. Everywhere he passed, the viburnum flowers bloomed. It was so beautiful that it could topple cities and countries. What followed was not the falling petals, but the enemy's corpses that fell like hailstones. Screams of agony filled the air. Xie Danqiong covered a distance of 500 feet in one go. Countless people had fallen down along the way. Viburnum flowers! It's the viburnum flowers! It's Xie Danqiong! We can't let him continue to act recklessly. Quickly stop him! Above and below, there were panic-stricken shouts. Since the beginning of the battle until now, who hadn't heard of the illustrious reputation of the viburnum flower during this period of almost a year? The name of the viburnum flowers, Xie Danqiong, had truly shaken the world. This was a reputation that had been earned through fighting, and an awe-inspiring might that had been gained through killing. The viburnum flowers were originally the most beautiful things. But now, they had become the biggest nightmare of Yuqi's army. Seeing the viburnum flowers meant that there would be people who would lose their lives in this sky full of beautiful viburnum flowers. Xie Danqiong's viburnum flowers, the beautiful viburnum flowers, had become a symbol of death. Yuchi looked at the sky full of colorful viburnum flowers blooming non-stop. He waved his hand. Then, several figures rushed up to the sky with a whoosh sound and turned into rainbows across the sky. They rushed towards Xie Danqiong's location. These people were top-notch experts who specialized in dealing with Xie Danqiong. If they didn't send this kind of specialized personnel to deal with Xie Danqiong and let him do as he pleased, then the number of lives reaped by the viburnum flower would be uncountable. In fact, in the previous battle, Yu had neglected Xie Danqiong's personal lethality. A blind spot appeared in the layout, causing a gap to appear in the annihilation battle that could have been completely annihilated. The beautiful scenery presented by the viburnum flowers became more and more gorgeous. Xie Danqiong leaped into the sky. His figure was confident and at ease, and his bearing was graceful. Even though he was in a battle of life and death, he still maintained his graceful and calm demeanor. He didn't show the slightest sign that he was at the end of his rope. From the beginning to the end, not a single shout came out of his mouth. From the beginning to the end, not a single curse came out of his mouth. Her entire being was like a pure and spotless viburnum flower. Together with his viburnum flowers, they wandered in the air, paced back and forth, and reaped human lives. However, they maintained an extremely elegant posture, as if they could maintain this posture until the end of time. Below, the officers and soldiers of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion rushed out like ferocious tigers out of the mountains, and faced the densely packed enemies on the opposite side. Kill! A thunderous roar came out. The curtains of the exceptionally cruel and bloody battle had officially opened. This was the last battle of their lives. The battle was in the most gorgeous way in the sky, and everywhere within a radius of hundreds of miles underground, there were battles everywhere. The assassins on Xie Danqiong's side and the assassins on Yuqi's side were doing their best to display their assassination skills. They were doing everything they could to reap human lives. No matter where the enemy was, including the enemy on the ground and the enemy in the sky. Arrows were flying everywhere. However, the arrows used here were different from the arrows used in the usual sense. These arrows were made of star-core silver. At the very least, it required a peak-level celestial being expert to mobilize all of his strength to shoot them. They were called saint-breaking arrows. On top of the arrows, there was also the Heaven's Heart Destruction, which was known as the #1 poison in the world. That was the world's most toxic heavenly treasure. Once an arrow was shot, it would be as fast as lightning, and as fast as a meteor. Even the arrows of a saint-level expert would lose their fighting power in an instant. Even a top-notch assassin could only own no more than 20 of them in his lifetime. Some assassins whose names had shaken the world for hundreds of thousands of years had never seen these arrows before. These arrows were the ultimate trump cards of the assassins. They couldn't be used casually. However, at this moment, they were being shot out as if they were free goods. Everyone knew that this battle was the final battle to destroy the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. The final battle. If they won this battle, they would still have a chance to get back their arrows. After all, each arrow had their own divine sense imprint on it. However, if they lost the battle, they would lose their lives. So, how could they talk about arrows? No matter how precious they were, the assassins on both sides held the same idea. Bang 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 bang, Xie Danqiong single-handedly faced the 5 top experts of the opposing side. His viburnum flowers fluttered and bloomed. It seemed as if he was fighting with his life on the line. However, his innate elegance was deeply ingrained in him. It seemed that no matter what kind of action it was, no matter how embarrassing or vulgar it was, Xie Danqiong's body exuded an innate aristocratic aura. Bang! A loud sound was heard. Xie Danqiong finally spat out a mouthful of blood. He spun and fell to the ground. His viburnum flowers fluttered and bloomed to protect his body. He fell into a battle below. Then, he continued to roll forward. His viburnum flowers bloomed along the way. The rolling heads looked like watermelons that had been knocked over. They rushed up with a whoosh sound, and fell down with a puff sound. Several of the enemies in the sky also spat out blood and fell to the ground. Some of them continued to chase after Xia Danqiong. Some of them turned around and killed their way into the army. It was a chaotic battle from the beginning. It was extremely chaotic. And this extremely chaotic battlefield also made people feel from the bottom of their hearts what was true cruelty. Real cruelty. The so-called cruelty. It was naturally feasible to fight one-on-one in a high-altitude battle in the ordinary sense of the word. In fact, the battlefield of high-level cultivators was more inclined to the high-altitude three-dimensional battle mode. However, if two armies were to engage in a large-scale battle, and the number of people participating in the battle would increase to a certain extent, millions of people would trample on each other. The atmosphere of the battle would become desperate. Then, no matter what kind of expert they were, they would choose to fall to the ground and fight on the ground. There were too many unpredictability on the battlefield. Enemies were everywhere as far as the eye could see. So, the chances of encountering an accident were naturally much lower than the high-altitude three-dimensional battle mode. This was the battle experience and wisdom accumulated by countless predecessors. Moreover, fighting in the high altitude also required the support of vitality. Every bit of yuan qi was infinitely precious in this kind of large-scale battle. How could it be wasted? Xia Danqiong took the lead. He charged and killed all the way. Although he was riddled with scars, his heart was still as cold as ice. There wasn't the slightest bit of restlessness. Thousands of soldiers charged back and forth. It could be said that Xia Danqiong's experience was very rich. Moreover, he didn't care about life and death as much as he used to. However, even so, Xia Danqiong still felt heartfelt heartache when he saw countless of his subordinates die an unnatural death. The battle had been chaotic from the beginning. It was extremely chaotic. This was a chaotic situation that Xia Danqiong's side had deliberately created. They were facing an enemy with overwhelming superiority. So, any deployment and any strategy would be of no use. It was better to be chaotic like this. Although those with lower cultivation would be at a disadvantage and would lose their lives very quickly, those with higher cultivation would be able to inflict great damage to the enemy. Even if they self-destructed at the last moment, they wouldn't have any scruples. Chaotic speculation created a turning point in the chaos, and created a chance for survival. The battle cries shook the heavens and the earth. Even the distant drums couldn't be heard. However, Xia Danqiong felt that the pressure on his body was getting bigger and bigger. He knew that the main force of Yu Jie's army was finally dispatched. The dispatch of the main force meant that the end of the heavenly armament pavilion was coming. Xia Danqiong's heart was somewhat unwilling to accept this. However, he was still calm. When he had angrily caused trouble for Mo Yuntian, he had already prepared for this outcome. Afraid? There was nothing to be afraid of. It was just a pity. Many black-clothed figures came flying in the sky. They spread out in the sky. In the distance, there was a black mass of people swarming over. Looking sideways, he saw that his side's army was retreating in defeat. It could collapse at any time. Xia Danqiong let out a long sigh in his heart. The beautiful jade flower fluttered and bloomed again. He flew back in the sky. At this point, the defeat was set. Now, the only thing he could do was to make a final effort to see if he could save the families of these soldiers. If he couldn't, then he could only fight to the death here. If Xia Danqiong were to withdraw and escape from this death trap, he wouldn't let the families of hundreds of thousands of soldiers be slaughtered. The last battle! Completely annihilate the heavenly armament pavilion! Kill the rebels and pacify the heavenly armament pavilion! The earth-shaking shouts came from Yu Jie's army. Xia Danqiong's eyes suddenly lit up. Perhaps there is another way to break this deadlock. That is, to kill the enemy's commander-in-chief. Yu Jie. However, Yu Jie was an army's commander-in-chief. Let's not talk about his amazing strength. How strong was the defense around him? How could it be easy to assassinate him? What's more, Yu Jie was almost at the same level as Xia Danqiong. He was even superior to Xia Danqiong. However, Xie Danqiong had no other choice now. The last move might not be able to protect the families of the soldiers. Yu Jie was cold-blooded and cruel. He would never accept his conditions. Instead of giving the choice to the other party, it was better to fight to the death. Chapter 2290. On both sides of him, countless enemy soldiers screamed and fell down. Blood splattered everywhere, forming a bloody alley. Xie Danqiong didn't make any moves according to the rules. Instead, he continued to rush forward without a care in the world. The viburnum flowers suddenly bloomed and turned into a haze that filled the entire sky. A kind of magnificent scene suddenly appeared in front of him. The two enemy generals didn't have time to wake up from this stunning beauty. They were already screaming strangely. Their hands covered their throats. Blood splattered out, and their bodies slowly fell down. It turned out that beauty could also be beautiful to death. This was the common understanding of the dead who died under the viburnum flowers. Xie Danqiong's figure really swept past like the wind. By the time the two enemy experts fell to the ground, he had already rushed forward no less than 1,000 feet. There were already more than 300 dead souls around him. Now, he was about 3,000 feet away from Yu Qi's army. Yu Qi's army had already started to attack. The number of people left behind to guard the commander's tent was relatively small. But Xie Danqiong wanted to force his way into the enemy's camp among the thousands of horse soldiers. He also wanted to brazenly kill the enemy's chief general. It was still an almost impossible task. Looking at the thousands of horse soldiers rushing over with unstoppable momentum, people and horses were thrown off their feet wherever he passed. Countless elite soldiers died one after another under this person's hands. Wherever he passed, a straight line formed a river of blood. Yu Qi's eyes slightly tightened. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She praised and said, "The viburnum flowers really live up to their reputation." Beside her, someone said softly, "However, with his current cultivation, he actually wants to carry out a decapitation operation against us. I don't know if he's too arrogant or overestimating his own capabilities." Hearing this, the others in the tent smiled. Everyone's smile was full of ridicule. In fact, Xie Danqiong's current movements and intentions were clearly seen by everyone. But no one thought that Xie Danqiong had the ability to decapitate. Not to mention others, just talking about the tent at this moment, there were more than 10 people whose cultivation was not lower than Xie Danqiong's. And there were 3 or 4 people who were far superior to Xie Danqiong. And these 3 or 4 people just happened to be the target of Xie Danqiong's action this time, Yu Qi. The success rate of Xie Danqiong's beheading strategy was less than 1,000th under such a huge disparity in strength. Yu Qi's eagle-like eyes stared at the figure, who was still dashing and at ease despite being bathed in blood, as he said in an indifferent voice, "Now that the battle has been decided, we are bored. Let him come over, and let us personally experience the methods of this Zhonghua." Yes. The enemy who had besieged Xie Danqiong suddenly retreated like a receding tide under this order. It was as if a wide and unobstructed path had appeared out of thin air between him and the tent at the top of the mountain. Straight up. A path that had been predicted and calculated had unexpectedly appeared in such a manner. Xie Danqiong took a deep breath. Then, he slowly stretched his stiff fingers. Then, he slowly moved the joints of his body. He slowly circulated his martial power to heal the accumulated injuries on his body. However, his speed didn't slow down even in the slightest. Like a shooting star, he rushed towards his target. Xie Danqiong also understood that the enemy had seen through his plans. Now that they had given him such a direct path, they must have set up countless traps and were waiting for him to die. But he had already come this far, how could he retreat at the last minute? No matter if it was a mountain of blades or a sea of fire, no matter how difficult it was, he had to charge through this time. The only way to break out of this situation was to find a path to survival. Seeing Xie Danqiong charge without any hesitation or reduction in speed. In the tent, many generals couldn't help but show expressions of admiration and respect. While they were enemies, it did not affect the respect they had for heroes and men. There were very few rulers that could make such a choice when they were at the end of the road. Xie Danqiong, as expected of a man. Whoosh! Xie Danqiong's rapidly flying figure appeared in front of the tent. His body was covered in blood, but it did not diminish his dashing presence. His tall and slender figure made him look even more handsome. He slowly took 2 steps and said with a slight smile, "Marshal Yu's tent is near a mountain and a river, easy to defend and hard to attack. As expected, the location is very good. As expected of a master of the art of war, this Xie has seen it." At this moment, he looked like a noble who was sightseeing and giving pointers. He really didn't look like someone who had come here for a bloody battle. Yuchi smiled faintly. Chief Xie's presence is also rare. You can be said to be an elite of the world. This Yu admires it greatly. Xie Danqiong shook his head. Your admiration is useless. I have come to take your head. Ha ha. Of the 30 to 40 people in the tent, more than half of them roared with laughter. Xie Danqiong had come here, and after seeing such a lineup, he still dared to say that he would take Yiqi's head. This was too arrogant. Or was he overestimating himself? As long as Chief Xie has the ability, you can take this head of this marshal at any time. Yuchi laughed, and then his expression became unprecedentedly serious. He asked in a low voice, Xie Danqiong, I will ask you one last time. Now, the situation is clear. Are you still not willing to surrender to me? Yuchi asked word by word. You are at the end of the road. As long as I give the order, the 1,000,000 wounded soldiers you are protecting, the 3,000,000 family members, and the less than 400,000 people you have on the battlefield will all be annihilated. Even the fact that you are able to come before me is a gift from me. Yuchi said seriously. So, you are still not willing to surrender? Xie Danqiong smiled. From what Marshal Yu means, if I surrender now, these people can live. Yuchi shook his head slowly. That is impossible. Or some of them can live. For example, I can spare your original subordinates. However, those who originally belonged to the Dream Slayer army and their families must die. To tell you the truth, I only value you, Xie Danqiong. That's all. Yuchi said. As long as you are willing to surrender, I can promise you that you will not be investigated for taking in rebels or for plotting a rebellion. Instead, you can live a life of wealth and prosperity. I promise you, you can be ranked in the heavenly court. Ranked in the heavenly court. These words caused many people's eyes to light up. The conditions that Rain Lagging offered were undoubtedly very generous. Xie Danqiong sighed. Most of my subordinates were killed by your words. So, I still have to surrender? Is the heavens playing tricks on me? As he spoke, he suddenly took off his blood-stained battle robe and revealed the clothes underneath. He said with a smile, Wait a moment, let me change. Everyone was stunned at the same time. How could this guy still change his clothes in front of so many enemies at this time? What was he doing now? However, there seemed to be some room to maneuver. Had Xie Danqiong been moved by Marshal Yu's words? Xie Danqiong casually threw out the blood-red battle robe in a natural and unrestrained manner. Then, he touched his ring, and a white robe appeared. Xie Danqiong slowly put on the white robe. The white robe was spotless like a snow lotus on the top of a snowy mountain, pure and holy. The white robe had covered all the wounds on Xie Danqiong's body. At this moment, he was in high spirits. He was handsome and confident, and his eyes were filled with elegance and nobility. A fine duke in a chaotic world, a handsome young man. Just like when they first met Chu Yang in the Three Heavens, that noble and aloof man. I've always loved wearing white. Even when I'm in battle, I still wear white. Xie Danqiong slowly tied a belt around his waist. With a snap, he opened a folding fan and said with a smile, The white robe I am wearing was made for me by my wife. This folding fan was given to me by my father when I ascended to the heavenly imperial court. Xie Danqiong smiled. Yuchi, you let me come here safely. How can I not give you a big gift in return? The viburnum flowers are about to bloom. All of a sudden, The entire tent was filled with blooming viburnum flowers without any warning. It was as if countless petals were falling from the sky, and also as if countless petals were surging out from the ground. There were also countless petals that were blooming in the void. It was just that every petal was flickering with that kind of cold, yet elegant cold light. Taking people's souls. Taking people's lives. Although everyone was already on guard against Xie Danqiong's sudden attack, they did not expect Xie Danqiong's attack to be so sudden. They did not know that Xie Danqiong was sighing in his heart. Why can't I be Wu Jueqing? Or Chu Le? Or even Big Brother Chu Yang? If Wu Jueqing or Chu Le were to appear in front of the enemy at such a close distance, it would mean that everyone's lives were already in their hands, at their mercy. If Chu Yang was at such a close distance, with the shocking lethality of the tribulation sword technique, if he attacked with all his might, there was also a high chance of killing Yu Qi. But Xie Danqiong did not have the special abilities required for these few things. He could only rely on his own viburnum flowers. When the viburnum flowers bloom, all other flowers wither. Yu Qi snorted. I knew you had this trick up your sleeve. But I still dared to let you come here. Isn't this enough to explain the problem? In the tent, all the experts attacked at the same time. Xie Danqiong's silhouette suddenly flew out like a streamer of light. It was unknown how much mountain-like power had hit his body. But it seemed as if he hadn't felt it at all. He was blindly facing Yu Qi, and was persistently attacking her. Humph. Chapter 2291. The rumbling sound was getting further and further away. Everyone had actually retreated. Xie Danqiong looked at everything that was happening in front of him. Looking at the people who surrounded him retreating like a tide, he was also dumbfounded. What the hell is going on? Could it be that? Xie Danqiong's heart suddenly started to beat wildly. Could it be that reinforcements had arrived? And it was a large-scale reinforcements? The number was so large that even Yu Yi had to consider it for fear of being attacked from both sides. However, this was Mo Yuntian. In this world, how could he have such a large scale of reinforcements? After a long while, the rumbling sound came from afar, from faintly discernible to clearly audible, and then to shaking the earth. A large flag fluttering in the wind suddenly rushed out from the corner of the mountain path in front of the dense forest. On it, a large Mu character appeared impressively. The tide-like army appeared once again, but it was no longer Yu Ye's army. A group of people separated into two sides, and a person rode out. His long beard fluttered in the wind, and his face was thin, but there was a hint of worry between his brows. Mu Tsunglan. At the most crucial moment, Mu Tsunglan's army finally dared to come and meet up with Xie Danqiong. The most critical crisis had finally passed. With the arrival of Mu Tsunglan's army, Yu Ye's army finally retreated. Before receiving the new reinforcements sent by Yuan Tianji, Yu Yi definitely did not have the guts to confront the current Mu Tsunglan. The most important thing was that Yu Yi did not know what had happened in the capital that could cause Mu Tsunglan's complete betrayal. Mu Tsunglan's influence and rallying power in the military had reached a shocking level. Along the way to the south, the number of troops he gathered along the way had reached tens of millions. This number already accounted for 1/10 of Mo Yuntian's actual military strength. There were still too many people who did not know the truth of the matter. As time passed, there would be more and more people who would come after hearing the news. At Xie Danqiong's most critical moment, Mu Tsunglan's army arrived in time, and the two sides that originally had no possibility of joining forces met here. Perhaps it was because of their original differences. Both sides thought that it was impossible for them to walk together again. Now that they had actually walked together, both sides felt a sense of awkwardness. After cleaning up the battlefield, the high-level officials of both sides gathered together and entered Xie Danqiong's meeting hall. No matter what, this kind of contact was necessary. No matter how awkward it was, this contact had to be carried out. This time, Mu Tsunglan was leading an army of tens of millions. Although Xie Danqiong's side was the weaker side, they had been fighting until now. It could be said that the issue of master and subordinate was the most important thing at the moment. He had to confirm it as soon as possible. There are no two suns in the sky, no two monarchs in a country, and no two commanders in an army. Otherwise, even if it was temporarily stable, there would definitely be internal strife in the future, and it would be impossible to avoid it in the long run. Wang Dao led the assassins under his command, as well as the head of Mo Tianji's secret intelligence department, and followed Xie Danqiong into the main hall. In my opinion, Commander Mu is a man of virtue and prestige. If we want to succeed, Commander Mu must take charge of the overall situation in person. What's more, if it wasn't for Marshal Mu's powerful arrival, I'm afraid that the Heavenly Armament Pavilion would have already ceased to exist. That's not true. Chief Xie led everyone to fight a bloody battle. After several hardships, the current situation was created. Commander Mu has just arrived and doesn't understand the situation. If he rashly led everyone, it would be difficult for him to convince everyone. I think that it's better for Chief Xie to take charge of the overall situation. That day, the Dream Slayer army was in Chief Xie's headquarters. Now, they are all sincerely convinced by Chief Xie. That's right. Chief Xie is the one who everyone wants. Sure enough. They only said a few words, but the subordinates of both sides were already in a mess because of this matter. The smell of gunpowder was getting thicker and thicker. At the beginning, both sides could still smile and argue. Later on, they gradually glared at each other and slammed the table. Xie Danqiong and Mu Tsanglan didn't even have time to speak before swords were drawn in the main hall. It was as if a fight was about to break out. Chief Xie, regarding the current situation, what do you think? Mu Tsanglan had a mysterious smile on his face. Xie Danqiong smiled and said, I would like to hear what your plan is, Commander Mu. Mu Tsanglan laughed and said, I don't care about myself. I'm just a little worried that with the current situation, Chief Xie alone may not be able to appease everyone. Xie Danqiong's people from the Heavenly Armament Pavilion heard this, and their hearts tightened. The meaning of Mu Tsanglan's words was very clear. He wanted to have the final say. They just didn't know what Chief Xie would say. If Chief Xie was the first to take a step back, then even if they were to break their heads, it would still be of no avail. It would be of no avail. Mu Tsanglan's people were shocked when they heard this. They looked at Xie Danqiong with shining eyes, waiting to see how he would respond. Xie Danqiong pursed his lips and smiled, saying, Why don't I know about this? Since when do we need to use face? We've always used our fists, haven't we? This sentence was full of hidden meaning. The meaning was also clear. Although you turned the situation around at the last moment, I will not easily give up my power. Although the two of them were opposing each other, they were both helpless in their hearts. Mu Tsanglan was a person of virtue and prestige, but Xie Danqiong was already established. If Mu Tsanglan hastily gave up his position, the tens of thousands of troops under his command would definitely not agree. We followed you because of you, Mu Tianlan, and not Xie Danqiong. If Xie Danqiong took a step back, his subordinates, who had been bathed in blood all the way until now, would inevitably be dissatisfied in their hearts even if they didn't say anything. If a conflict arose between the two sides because of this, then it would be a big problem. Therefore, either of them would take a step back. Marshal Mu, other than my boss, I, Xie, have never been inferior to anyone else in my entire life. Even if Chief Mu is here now, there is no exception. Xie Danqiong smiled gently, but the attitude expressed in his words was that he would not take a step back. He was not the only one here. Boss Chu's people and Mo Tianji's people were here too. He was here on behalf of Brother Tribulation, not just himself. Brother Jian never bowed his head. I can't lose the face of my brothers. Mu Tsanglan's expression changed instantly. He said slowly, With the reputation that I have accumulated for 1,000,000 years, the cultivation of a peak saint, and the experience of leading an army for 1,000,000 years, I really can't make Chief Xie take a step back? Xie Danqiong smiled. Yes, what Chief Mu said is an indisputable fact. However, Chief Mu, the first thing I want to refute is, Although you have the cultivation of a peak high-level saint, and I am ashamed of my inferiority, I am also at the peak level of a beginner saint now. Although I am much weaker than you in this aspect, I am only 20 years old now. Xie Danqiong raised his head. His eyes were like spring water, but they were aggressive. I, a nobody, cultivated from nothing to the peak level of a beginner saint. Even if you include the days when I was in my mother's womb, I have only cultivated for these 20 years. Chief Mu, how many days did you use to cultivate to your current level? What kind of strength did you have when you were 20 years old? Mu Tsanglan was instantly embarrassed and speechless. The people of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion behind Xie Danqiong almost burst out laughing. Xie Danqiong's words were really sharp. Of course, it was also very strange. Yes, you have a high position and power. Your cultivation is high. These are all true. However, you have spent millions of years to accumulate everything you have today. I, on the other hand, only used 20 years to have the foundation I have now. However, what cultivation did you have when you were my age? What foundation? I am indeed inferior in this aspect. I would like to hear 2 reasons. If there is one, there must be 2, right? Mu Tsanglan waved his hand to stop the restlessness behind him. Instead, he asked with interest. Secondly, although Commander Mu has a powerful army, but in the current situation, it is very sudden to make a mutiny. Although it is because of the heavenly demons and evil demons, it is not appropriate for Commander Mu to be the leader of the rebel army. It will be hard to avoid gossip. Xie Danqiong smiled and did not complete his sentence. Mu Tsanglan nodded and said, "This point is indeed correct. Although Yuan Tianji is a demonic evildoer, I have always been his subordinate for countless years. If I really become the leader of the uprising, people will definitely make a fuss about it. They will say that I rebelled because I wanted to take a step further from my own power. This is indeed something we must guard against. We must guard against it." The generals behind Mu Tsanglan were first stunned. Then, they understood. Then, they felt a wave of disappointment. That's right, this was indeed a big problem. It would definitely be the focus of public opinion. Guarding against gossip was more important than guarding against a river. That was impossible to guard against. When the time comes, once this public opinion was formed, Mu Tsanglan's appeal would definitely be destroyed. Thirdly, Commander Mu knows too many people in the heavenly courts. There are really many people who are familiar with Commander Mu's methods in the art of war and tactics. In this aspect, he is inevitably weak. No matter how scheming and far-sighted he is, he has long formed a fixed pattern of thinking. It will be difficult for him to escape the calculations of someone with ulterior motives. Xie Danqiong smiled faintly. The 4th reason is that other than all the power I have now, I still have endless external help. However, this can only be said for you. Although you have millions of subordinates, it is already the limit. It is also a tree without roots, a limited source. The 5th reason is that the battle against the heavenly devil is a huge matter of the entire heavenly court. It is not a private matter of the heavenly court. Xie Danqiong smiled. Your previous thoughts of revenge are too narrow. The first reason is that I am young. The people of the heavenly court of Moyun have not experienced much of my methods. I can always win by surprise. Most importantly, I have a good reason. Chapter 2292. Among all these reasons, this marshal feels that the last personal reason is the most reasonable. Mu Tsanglan laughed and turned around. How is it? Do you all understand now? Everyone nodded. Although they were still a little uncomfortable, after listening to Xie Danqiong's analysis of the pros and cons, even a fool could tell right from wrong. Although Xie Danqiong's last reason was very arrogant and unpleasant to the ears, it also proved that Xie Danqiong had this ambition. As for Mu Tsanglan, no matter what his background was, he had only been a subordinate for 1,000,000 years. To be honest, how could he have the ambition to go further? Moreover, the fact that Yuan Tianji was an extraterrestrial demon had already left a stain on Mu Tsanglan that would be difficult to remove for the rest of his life. that was to serve the extraterrestrial demon loyally for 1,000,000 years. What kind of shame and humiliation was this? If he didn't cleanse himself, how could Mu Tsung-lan have the face to go further? That's it! Mu Tsung-lan stood up and made the final decision. All the troops under my command will be merged into the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Chief Xia will still be the chief. I, Mu Tsung-lan, will shamelessly continue to be the Grand Marshal and lead the troops. However, all dispatches and orders must be obeyed by Chief Xie. Anyone who disobeys or tries to rebel will be executed immediately without mercy. Mu Tsung-lan originally didn't want to fight for the position of the leader of the anti-demon army. When the matter of Yuan Tianji came out, Mu Tsung-lan was furious and ashamed, but in fact, his heart was like dead ashes. He didn't have the face to see anyone, let alone fight for the position of leader. However, with so many subordinates following him, most of them came for him, Mu Tianlan. If he couldn't come up with a convincing reason, it was inevitable that people wouldn't be able to accept it. If they simply couldn't accept it, it would be fine. If it caused a negative incident because of this, it would be his fault. Xia Danqiong had also stated the reason in front of everyone. So, the transition had become a matter of course. And, when the conditions were right, success would come naturally. As for Mu Tsung-lan continuing to lead the troops as the Grand Marshal, Xia Danqiong didn't have any objections. In fact, it was exactly what he wanted. Other than Mu Tsung-lan, there was really no one else who could suppress this group of arrogant soldiers. Even if he didn't count his own subordinates, most of the other members were originally from the Dream Slayer army. They definitely wouldn't dislike being led by Mu Tsung-lan. Both sides hit it off immediately. Just now, it was as if they had cooperated to put on a big show. However, this show was necessary. It was equivalent to laying a solid foundation for Mo Yuntian's future. The next morning, Mu Tsung-lan steadied the army and reorganized the troops. He began to appoint generals and prepare for the northern expedition. At the same time, a proclamation to suppress the extraterrestrial demons and devils were announced to the world. The Heavenly Emperor, Yuan Tianji, was extraterrestrial heavenly demon. Extraterrestrial demons wreaked havoc and the people had no way of making a living. They invaded purple clouds and plunged the people into misery and suffering. There were extraterrestrial demons who had sneaked into Heavenly Palace early on and wanted to do great things. The Heavenly Emperor of Mo Yuntian, Yuan Tianji, is the extraterrestrial demon king. Once it was revealed, the world would be shocked. The 7-star guards rose to kill the extraterrestrial demons. However, the extraterrestrial demons were cruel and cunning. They killed the 5 kings. Today, the Mo Yuntian army rose to kill the extraterrestrial demons and return Mo Yuntian to us. Everyone has the responsibility to kill the extraterrestrial demons. Killing the extraterrestrial demons is the most urgent matter. The 1,000,000 years of humiliation of Mo Yuntian will be cleansed today. Men with lofty ideals. The proclamation listed the crimes of the extraterrestrial demons one by one. It also analyzed Yuan Tianji's identity from the basics until it was clear. No one would have the slightest doubt. As long as one had doubts about Yuan Tianji's identity and looked at this proclamation, they would believe it without a doubt. This proclamation was written by Mu Tsung-lan's old friend, the erudite scholar Ji Hong. This old man had students all over the world. His students moved when they heard the news, and their momentum was even greater. And the shocking news of Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian as extraterrestrial demon was like a bomb that suddenly exploded in the entire Heavenly Imperial Court. Book Maniac and Painting King were seriously injured and fled outside at top speed. However, they had encountered dozens of pursuers along the way. Many times, they had almost lost their lives. Almost all the secret experts under Yuan Tianji's command came out in full force. Yuan Tianji's hatred towards Book Maniac and Painting King could not be washed away even if the 3 rivers and 5 lakes were emptied. The ones who came out this time were the extraterrestrial demons that Yuan Tianji had been hiding all along. Every one of them was an expert among experts. Moreover, Every one of them used the extraterrestrial demon's unique blood escape technique to chase after the two kings at top speed. Blood escape technique was the extraterrestrial demon's secret technique. First, the user had to sacrifice himself to see its effect. Every time the secret technique was used, not to mention the effect, the negative effects could not be recovered in a short time. If it was used 3 times in a row, even if it was an extraterrestrial demon king, there would also be the danger of his whole body collapsing. From this, it could be seen how urgent Yuan Tianji was to capture Book Maniac and Painting King. Just like this, they ran and fought all the way. The Painting King and Painting King were also angered. Originally, the two kings were disheartened by the death of many of their brothers, and they had already told Mu Tianlong that Yuan Tianji was an extraterrestrial demon. Their biggest worry had already been resolved, so they didn't really want to leave Mo Yuntian. They only wanted to find a place to stay in Mo Yuntian first, and after recovering from their injuries, go find Yuan Tianji to take revenge. However, they didn't expect to be chased by a group of extraterrestrial demons. After being chased all the way, the two changed their original intention. Aren't you afraid that we will escape from Mo Yuntian? In that case, we must escape no matter what. Go to Demon Emperor Heaven, find Chu Yang, and settle the score in the future. Both of them had the same idea in their hearts. Then they thought about the words Chu Yang had told them when they left the Demon Emperor Heaven more than a month ago. They thought about how their 5 brothers were still alive at that time, but now, their souls had already dispersed. The two of them couldn't help but feel grief and hatred. They suddenly felt that right now, only Chu Yang could help them take revenge. Right now, only Chu Yang had the huge capital to fight against Yuan Tianji. As long as they found Chu Yang, they would be able to recover from their injuries in peace. The two of them first went to other heavens and earth, and contacted the 7 star guards of their respective heavenly emperors. Then, they gathered their forces and came to fight against Yuan Tianji. They must completely destroy this extraterrestrial demon. Both of them were peak-level experts. Although they were seriously injured at this moment, they still had the ability to escape. They chased and escaped like this for more than 20 days. Although they met with danger again and again, they were always able to avoid danger and actually reach the seaside. The other side was Demon Emperor Heaven. But when they reached here, the two of them were a little worried. If they wanted to cross this sea, when their cultivation was at its peak, it was naturally not a problem. They only needed to transform into a rainbow, and at most half a day's time would have passed. But now that they were seriously injured, they couldn't do it. Moreover, if they were being chased on land, they could at least find a place to rest and recover. But if they were to start a chase on the vast sea, it was all seawater below, boundless and without any time or place to catch their breath. Once they entered the sea, even if the two of them had great abilities, they couldn't be compared to extraterrestrial demons, these monsters that were stronger in the water than on land. Then, wouldn't that be a dead end? But now that they were already here, if they didn't cross the sea, it meant that they couldn't reach Demon Emperor Heaven, and they couldn't see Chu Yang. As time passed, once the extraterrestrial demons chasing them all joined together, they would still be annihilated here. The two of them thought over and over again, but still couldn't come up with a good idea. Looking at each other in a daze, the two of them had complicated looks in their eyes. Seeing their brother in such a sorry state and exhausted state, both of them felt extremely uncomfortable in their hearts. The painting and calligraphy kings, these two had always paid attention to their own image. At any time, they were immortal-like and untainted. But now, being chased until now, they hadn't washed their faces properly for more than 20 days, and hadn't even tidied up their hair once. It was a complete mess as far as the eye could see. Both of their hearts ached from the bottom of their hearts. Behind them, the familiar sharp sound of the air being torn apart sounded again. The experts of the extraterrestrial demons had already caught up. Fight! Cross the sea! The painting and calligraphy kings looked at each other, and made the same decision at the same time. At the same time, the two of them made another decision in their hearts. If they were truly exhausted in the process of crossing the sea and were caught up by the enemy, They would rather sacrifice themselves to ensure that their brothers would be able to safely reach the demon Emperor Sky. Both of them were already mentally prepared for this. A shrill howl sounded, and two rainbows suddenly appeared. The painting and calligraphy kings disappeared at the same time. In the sky, two rainbows flashed and disappeared. Very good! They have finally embarked on this path. The path of no return that we have designed for them. The leader of the extraterrestrial demons had a face as black as charcoal, but his eyes emitted a strange blue light. Everyone, listen to my orders. Pursue them at full speed. We must kill these two bastards and report back to His Majesty, the Heavenly Demon King. Yes. In the sky above the sea, an unprecedented pursuit was unfolding. The two rainbows in front were fleeing desperately, and there were more than 10 streams of black gas chasing after them desperately. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. Seeing that they hadn't even crossed half of the sea, the painting and calligraphy kings felt despair in their hearts. Could it be that we are really going to be killed here? But we still have so many grievances, and that deep hatred, and the hopes of our 5 brothers. How can we die now? How can we die? Both of them were roaring in their hearts, and they used almost all their strength to dash forward. However, the two rainbows that they had transformed into were already showing signs of disarray. Chapter 2293. The strength of those palms was not strong, but the meaning of humiliation was too obvious. The strange laughter did not come from the back. Second brother, these two guys claim to be the top experts of the Heaven Imperial Court. Why do they look like sick seedlings? They don't live up to their reputation. That's right. They look like they could be blown down by a strong wind. It's so embarrassing. Sigh, I have no appetite. I was looking forward to it, but now I don't even have the mood to eat them. Are these two sick? They might have a stomachache if they eat them. The two of them were fuming with anger. If you weren't seriously injured by Yuan Tianjia before, would you be able to be so arrogant in front of me with just a few pieces of trash like you? But there was nothing they could do now. A dragon in shallow water would be teased by shrimps, and a tiger on the plains would be bullied by dogs. The enemies had caught up with them. There was no hope of escaping. There was no point in holding on. The two of them made up their minds and suddenly turned around. Even if they were going to die, they would drag a few more people down with them. The awe-inspiring demeanor of the two at this moment startled the 15 heavenly demons behind them. Then they cried out in anger out of humiliation. You're at death's door, and you still dare to play tricks like this? Kill them! Kill them! How dare they go against us? They don't know what's good for them. Speaking of which, I haven't tasted the meat of a Sage Peak expert. This time, I'm going to have a taste. Even if I have a stomachache, I can't care so much. The two of them looked as cold as ice. They tried their best to raise their remaining cultivation, and even had the thought of self-detonating. If their corpses were to be eaten by these heavenly demons and evildoers after they died, that would be the ultimate humiliation. What do you want to eat? Is it delicious? At this critical moment, a curious voice came out. Before this, no one had noticed that there was another person hiding in the sky above the sea. The moment they heard this voice, everyone jumped in fright. Although the two kings of calligraphy and painting were shocked, they were more indifferent. This was because the situation had already reached a point where it could not get any worse. Even if another heavenly demon appeared, it would not be able to make the situation worse for them. So what else did it matter? However, as a person in a desperate situation, he was unwilling to let go of even the slightest bit of hope. After all, that person's voice and tone were clearly not on the same side as the heavenly demons. Since he was not the friend of the enemy, he could be the enemy of the enemy. In other words, he could also be the friend of the enemy who could turn his dangerous situation around. When the heavenly demon heard that person's reply, it became even more furious. The group of sky devils knew that other than them, there were no other companions chasing after them. Therefore, This guy who came in and talked without any reason must be a local of Heaven Imperial City. Since he was a native of Heaven Imperial City, he was destined to be an enemy. He might even be a troublesome character who could affect the outcome of this mission. How could their complacent state of mind not be angry and dejected? Who the hell is playing tricks over there? Come out if you have the guts. Who do you think you are to hide your head and show your tail? The leading heavenly demon shouted. The invisible intruder suddenly said in surprise. You guys are really weird. Why are you hiding a pair of wings? No, why are there no feathers at all? If there are no feathers, what are they called? It's the first time for me to see guys like you. I'm really curious. Bring them over and let me take a closer look. I'll analyze them. Don't be sad if you don't have a name. I'll give you a nice name later. I'm sure you'll be satisfied. How dare you! How dare you! The 15 heavenly demons were so angry that their lungs almost exploded. Heavenly demon wings. This was the supreme glory of the heavenly demon clan. This pair of wings could be hard or soft, and they were ever-changing. Even if a heavenly demon lost his cultivation during a battle, he could still fly thousands of miles with this pair of wings. Moreover, it could be used as a protective weapon, which was indestructible and invincible. When not in use, he could hide it behind his back. No one would be able to see anything unusual about it. This was the symbol of status in the heavenly demon clan. Simply put, in the heavenly demon clan, not all heavenly demons had this pair of wings. Only the purest heavenly demons, who had to cultivate to the level of demon general and above, were qualified to be enlightened once by the heavenly demon king and have a pair of wings appear on his ribs. In the heavenly demon clan, if any heavenly demon saw his heavenly demon wings, he would be infinitely envious. There were billions of heavenly demons in the heavenly demon clan. How many of them could have the heavenly demon wings? They, the elites of the heavenly demons, secretly followed the heavenly demon king into the black cloud skyland. They worked hard for 1,000,000 years before they were enlightened by Demon King Meng Tian, and had a pair of heavenly demon wings as a reward. How could they allow this person in the dark to mock and humiliate them like this? How dare you! The person in the dark laughed. Suddenly, with a crisp sound, the clothes of one of the heavenly demons were torn apart, revealing the heavenly demon wings that had always been hidden and shining with golden light. TSK, it's indeed an extraordinary thing. This pair of wings is not of an ordinary species. Are you heavenly demons from the heavenly demon realm? It's indeed fucking weird. Ha! That person laughed out loud. With wings on your body, aren't you fucking birdmen? Come out! The 15 heavenly demons shouted together, and their momentum was extremely terrifying. Fine, I'll come out. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Along with this voice, a green smoke suddenly appeared in midair. That green smoke slowly condensed and actually condensed into a solid human figure. Then, the human figure changed, and his facial features appeared in front of them one by one. A man in green, wearing a hemp robe and a high hat, appeared in front of everyone with a dignified demeanor. It's him. The painting and calligraphy kings heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts at the same time. As their minds relaxed, the internal breathing that they had been forcefully maintaining was messed up. Their bodies were on the verge of collapsing, and they almost fell into the sea. The other heavenly demons might not know who the person in front of them was, but the two of them knew clearly. This was the divine soul of a calamity. And in the entire Heaven Imperial Court, there was only one divine soul of a calamity that was still alive. That was the divine soul of a calamity that had been following Chu Yang. But they didn't know why this big brother had come here. But no matter what the reason was, since the divine soul of a calamity appeared here, the two of them were safe. Although the heavenly demons that came to pursue them had outstanding cultivations, they were still far inferior to the 7-star guards. If they were not injured and in good condition, either of the painting king or calligraphy crazy would be able to deal with a dozen heavenly demons on their own, and it would be effortless. It was just that the injuries they suffered this time really affected their divine soul, spiritual consciousness, cultivation, and physical body. Their original strength was almost less than 100%. That was why they were unable to fight back, and in the end, they didn't even have the strength to resist. Although the cultivation of the Calamity spirit was still inferior to the two in their peak state, its undying and indestructible characteristics and endless offensive methods were something that the two of them could not compare to. Dealing with these 15 heavenly demons was a piece of cake. It could even be said that it was the nemesis of these heavenly demons and evildoers. Who the hell are you? The leader of the heavenly demons couldn't help but ask cautiously when he saw the divine soul of a Calamity appear calmly without the slightest hint of nervousness or fear. You're asking who I am? I'm your ancestor. The green-robed figure was naturally the divine soul of a Calamity. He laughed and said, "My name is the Emperor. How dare you? Impudent. You're courting death. Kill him." With angry curses, all the heavenly demons attacked together, almost going crazy. The heavenly demon clan's most supreme ruler now was none other than His Majesty the Emperor. And this guy in front of them was clearly doing it on purpose. Any heavenly demon clan member would not be able to bear this if they heard it. Good timing! The divine soul of a Calamity laughed strangely. Suddenly, his entire body split into 15 green-robed figures. Each of them took on a heavenly demon, and they fought fiercely in the air. At this point, the painting king and calligraphy crazy were completely relieved. The last time they saw the divine soul of a Calamity, he could only transform into black smoke. Now, he had become green smoke. Half of the gloomy and terrifying aura was gone, but there was a lot more elegance. Obviously, his cultivation had improved greatly. The last time they saw him, he could only create countless clones to harass the enemy, and their lethality was not enough to kill high-level experts. But now, the clones he created were no different from his original body in terms of attack power. They could kill the enemy very effectively. This was undoubtedly a huge improvement. Although they did not understand how the divine soul of a Calamity could improve so quickly, the two knew that this change must have something to do with Chuyang. As they spoke, the seawater in the sky suddenly surged up, and in an instant, it shot up 1,000 feet into the sky. For a moment, the scene of the water and the sky connecting appeared. Seeing this, the painting king panicked and hurriedly shouted, "Don't let the heavenly demon come into contact with the seawater!" The heavenly demon's heavenly demon wings were even more powerful in the water. Its swimming speed was more than 10 times faster than an ordinary person's. If the battlefield changed to an underwater battle, not only would the divine soul of a Calamity lose his advantage, he might even be in great danger. And the reason for this change was that although the divine soul of a Calamity had a high cultivation, he lacked experience in fighting against heavenly demons. Stirring up the seawater in the sky was originally intended to harass the enemy, but it turned out to be a trap for himself, putting himself in a dangerous situation. Seeing this, the 15 heavenly demons were all overjoyed. They were in a difficult situation because of the divine soul of a Calamity. They were almost suppressed by the other party as soon as they came up. At first, they thought about whether they could find a way to dive into the sea to fight, but the other party's strength was too tyrannical, and his fighting style was even more strange. Not to mention that they had no power to fight back, even parrying was very difficult. How could they deliberately change the battlefield? But seeing that the other party was so kind to give them such a good opportunity, how could they not make good use of it? At the same time, they dived into the sea. With a flash of light, they disappeared in the sky. They had the talent of water escape, and could completely hide their existence in the water. Chapter 2294. The divine soul of Calamity was also a veteran who had been on the battlefield for a long time. How could it make such a low-level mistake? When all the heavenly demons dived into the sea, the wave of seawater he stirred up before all rose from the surface of the sea. In the blink of an eye, the part of the seawater in the air had been separated from the sea by a distance of 70 to 80 feet, and suddenly became rootless water. The next moment, the divine soul of Calamity spun rapidly, and a burst of extremely cold air surged out. The seawater in the air instantly turned into a large piece of crystal-like extremely cold ice. The large piece of ice was still spinning in the air, emitting thousands of magnificent and gorgeous rays of light under the sunlight. However, at this moment, it was as if there was nothing inside at all. The divine soul of Calamity didn't take it seriously. He laughed and further urged his cultivation to continue freezing. Slowly, the huge ice block turned into a huge column of black ice. At this time, the heavenly demons who were wrapped in it didn't dare to move rashly. If they moved, they would inevitably leave traces and become live targets at any time. Anyway, we have the special ability to hide in the water. As long as we don't reveal any flaws, what's the point of you freezing us? With our cultivation, will we be frozen to death by you? Crazy Book and Crazy Man were also a little confused by the divine soul of Calamity's approach. Your approach does trap the enemy. The effect is obvious, but the real effect is not good. There is no way to deal with the enemy. It is difficult to cause any fundamental damage. Also, that is an ice column of seawater that weighs hundreds of thousands of pounds. Can you keep holding it like this? But the next change made the two of them widen their eyes immediately. They admired it from the bottom of their hearts. They admired it from head to toe. It was simply admiring it. They saw the divine soul of Calamity suddenly spit out a blazing white flame from its mouth without warning. That was the unique flame of the divine soul of Calamity. It also had a name, Heart-Burning Fire. The white flame flashed under the ice. The top continued to freeze with the power of extreme cold, but the bottom was gradually burned by this strange flame that could burn anything. Although it was a large piece of ice, it gradually evaporated from the bottom at a speed visible to the naked eye. It turned into a cloud of mist that rose to the sky. In the process of melting the ice, not even a drop of water dripped down. Is this the conflagrated knowledge sea? Crazy Book and the other two were naturally knowledgeable people. They asked in surprise at the same time. That's right. The divine soul's smile contained undisguised pride. As long as one had the cultivation of a sage, one could use the conflagration of divine knowledge. Even a primary sage could use it. This was originally a move exclusive to sages. However, not everyone could continuously burn their divine knowledge for such a long period of time. Take the two kings of calligraphy and painting as an example. Even in their strongest state, they could not do it. The two kings of calligraphy and painting judged that to continuously burn one's conflagrated divine sense for such a long period of time, let alone them, even Juniho might not be able to do it. But the divine soul of the Calamity had done it, and it even had the strength to do it so easily. Actually, to put it bluntly, Xian Su wasn't necessarily that frightening, because the divine soul of the Calamity was a body of divine sense. It could be said that as long as he wanted, this method of continuously burning his conflagrated knowledge sea could be used endlessly. And this kind of flame was the biggest natural nemesis against the extraterrestrial demons. Ever since the two of you left the Demon Emperor Heaven for 10 days, the little ancestor sent me to the sea to wait for you at any time. The little ancestor solemnly told me, unless the two of you don't come back, if you do, you will definitely be heavily injured. One life is more than 10 halts. So I came. I've been waiting here all this time, and I've really waited until the two of you were seriously injured. What does it mean to have godlike foresight? This divine soul has broadened my horizons again today. Crazy Book and the other two looked surprised. The little ancestor mentioned by the divine soul of the Calamity was, of course, Chu Yang. What Chu Yang said was indeed right. Moreover, this preparation was really thorough. Everything had been accounted for. If it weren't for the divine soul of the Calamity waiting here, the two of them would have either exploded or become a delicious meal in the stomach of the extraterrestrial demons. Originally, I didn't want to come, but the little ancestor told me that the death energy absorbed by the sea this time may not be less than that absorbed by Luohua City. And it's all the death energy of living creatures. Also, the water is very different from the land. Maybe I will have a new discovery. After I came, I realized that the sea is simply my blessed land. The little ancestor is really prescient. The divine soul of the Calamity spoke with undisguised admiration for Chu Yang. There was even a kind of indescribable flattery. This kind of flattery made Crazy Book and the other two roll their eyes. But at this time and place, they really couldn't say anything about it. For hundreds of millions of years, I don't know how many fish and shrimps have died in the sea, and the sea can't hold the death energy. All the resentment energy is floating in the air. It's really a feast for me. I can't finish it no matter how much I eat. The divine soul of the Calamity laughed. And it also made me understand the principle that water and fire have the same origin. Well, this time, turning water into ice and turning my palm into fire is the greatest achievement of this trip. Listening to the little ancestor's words is really better than reading books for 10,000 years. My left hand is yin and my right hand is yang. It's just right to use these demon babies to test my new cultivation method. The divine soul of the Calamity laughed loudly. 2/3 of the huge ice pillar in the air had burned and evaporated. But the remaining 1/3 was frozen even more firmly by the extremely cold energy of the divine soul of the Calamity. At this time, more than a dozen black shadows could be faintly seen rolling and squirming inside. They were in great pain and seemed to be screaming, but no specific sound could be heard. When my divine sense turns into ice and fire, even if the extraterrestrial demon emperor comes in person, he can only be at my mercy. You last demon clowns will be even more vulnerable. The divine soul of the Calamity looked extremely proud and complacent. Since when could he be so high-spirited in front of a peak-level sage expert? In the past, when he met experts like the Crazy Book Painting King, when did he not have to bow and scrape, smile, and serve them carefully? And they might not even be willing to pay attention to him. Moreover, every time such experts met the divine soul of the Calamity, which one of them did not want to destroy him? It was really fortunate that he found the right master back then that he could be where he was today. He was really wise back then. If it wasn't for the little ancestor being so awesome, how could he be so awesome now? Humans, as long as you take the right step, you will have unlimited potential. Didn't this prove the wisdom of this sentence? Feeling extremely proud, he displayed even more power in his hands. The flames burned even more fiercely, and the power was shocking. Although it was still very exhausting to do this, being able to show off in front of a peak-level sage and seeing the other party's unconcealable astonishment, the divine soul of the Calamity was simply bursting with joy. It was as cool and carefree as being in an ice cellar on a hot day. Worth it! Damn it, it was too worth it! At this point in life, what more could he ask for? After a while, there was an additional ball of dense fog in the sky that did not dissipate. The huge ice pillar that was originally in the sky had already completely disappeared without a trace, along with the 15 heavenly devil demon generals. They no longer existed in this world. Their divine souls were destroyed, their souls scattered, and they were beyond redemption. After everything was over, the divine soul of the Calamity opened his mouth and inhaled. That dense fog that contained dense death aura was sucked into his stomach in one breath, and he patted his stomach in satisfaction and laughed. It seems that these guys have really killed a lot of people. The death aura is so strong. This hard work is worth the ticket price. Comfortable. The Painting King duo revealed an unconcealable look of fear on their faces at the same time, and they seemed to be a little disgusted. After the people died, this guy actually swallowed them, completely wiping out the last trace of their existence. Things like the divine soul of the Calamity were indeed extremely powerful and strange existences. Even though the two of them were seriously injured and their strength was greatly reduced, how could the heavenly demon generals who could force the two of them to such a miserable state be ordinary people? But in the hands of the divine soul of the Calamity, they were almost unable to retaliate at all, and were completely incinerated. The ending was tragic. Although the divine soul of the Calamity also used a trick, it was still shocking enough. Moreover, their souls were scattered, and they were beyond redemption. In the midst of chatting and laughing, the strong people were reduced to ashes. What a terrifying divine soul of the Calamity! The two of you, please be on your way. The divine soul of the Calamity more or less laughed sinisterly, and with a gust of chilly wind, he brought the painting king duo and floated away. The little ancestor has been waiting for the two of you for a long time. Demon Emperor Heaven, Heavenly Armament Pavilion! Chu Yang personally brought the two of them in, and without saying a word, each of them took a heavy pill first. Hurriedly alleviating the serious injuries on the two of them was the most important thing. The two of them had persevered all the way until now, and they were really at the point of exhaustion. Even when the divine soul of the calamity brought them along, the two of them had already fainted and were on the verge of death. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they could die at any time. This was also because Chu Yang had a divine medicine like the heavy pill. If it were other people, even if they succeeded in receiving them, they might not be able to treat the injuries of the two of them. It was very likely that they could only watch as they died in a coma. But even if there were thousands of questions now, they still had to wait for the two of them to wake up before making any plans. Actually, with regards to the matter at Mo Yuntian's side, not only was Chu Yang already clear about it, even the entire Heaven Imperial Court was already in a state of turmoil because of this matter. The Brothers of Tribulation were naturally the first group of people to know about the incident at Mo Yuntian. With Mo Tianji's Tianji Intelligence Department there, the latest information from various worlds was constantly poured into their ears. Even if the brothers wanted to pretend to be deaf and mute, it was impossible. Regarding this matter, GMO and Luo Kudi's behavior was very much in line with their character, and they were extremely indignant. They often scolded Mo Tianji. First of all, I wish everyone a happy double festival. Cough cough, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, the Lantern Festival. The moon is high above the willow tree. When people meet at dusk, when they suddenly look back, that person is at a place where the lights are waning. Chapter 2295. GMO and Luo Kudi were extremely dissatisfied with Mo Tianji. You said that you only need to send news about us brothers, but you also crazily instilled all those miscellaneous news here. What is the meaning of this? Sometimes, when we are sleeping soundly, we are woken up by your subordinates. Don't you know that we have already instructed them to call me immediately if there is news about the Tianji Intelligence Department? Can't you fucking let us have a good night's sleep? As for the entire Heaven Imperial Court, Mo Tianji's Tianji Intelligence Department made the atmosphere even more chaotic and jittery. The extraterrestrial demons have invaded, so and so were massacred by the extraterrestrial demons. The scene is extremely bloody and tragic. Extraterrestrial demons have appeared in so and so city. Latest news, the Heavenly Emperor of Ink Cloud, Yuan Tianji, is an extraterrestrial demon. The news has been confirmed. According to the witnesses at the scene, latest news, the 7 great guards of Ink Cloud Sky have discovered the truth that Yuan Tianji is an extraterrestrial demon. They have all rebelled. Latest news, the number 1 general of Ink Cloud Sky, Mu Tsanglan, has learned of the truth and rebelled. The demon-slaying mission is on a grand scale. Latest news. Of course, all the latest news was extremely expensive. If not, how could the authenticity of the information be reflected? But at this time, who cared about the price? As long as they heard it, they would buy the latest news to understand the specific situation. One had to admit that Mo Tianji's wealth from this war was great. Gu Duxing could not stand this the most. He had specially sent a letter to Mo Tianji. Can't you just give this kind of information for free? Why do you have to think about money? This is already a critical moment for the survival of the Heaven Imperial Court. Don't you feel embarrassed to make such a fortune? Don't you feel embarrassed? Mo Tianji specially explained this to Gu Duxing, leaving him speechless. Can free information be valued? So cheap things are not good. Who cares about free information? Only when it was important information that they were asked to buy, and had to spend a lot of money to buy, would they read it word by word. Good stuff was never cheap. They were afraid that they would waste their money. You, old second Gu, don't know anything about these things. What the hell are you blabbering about? Mo Tianji was not stingy and sent this rebuttal to everyone at the same time. There was only one person who was extremely depressed, while the other 8 people were laughing out loud in Schadenfreude. At the same time, the upper echelons of the various worlds were also paying close attention to Mo Yuntian's movements. There were even many heaven and earth imperial emperors who had sent their most capable subordinates to secretly rush to Mo Yuntian to confirm whether the news was true or not. After all, the news that a celestial emperor was actually the incarnation of a heavenly demon was simply too shocking and unimaginable. After waking up the bookworm and the painting king and confirming that the news was true, Chu Yang immediately sent a message to Mo Tianji. Tell the brothers that everyone seems to have been idle for so long, it's time to get to work. Let's set off separately. We'll only bring our elites. When the time comes, Mo Yuntian will gather. Heavenly Imperial Court, Tribulation Reunion. Chu Yang's eyes were shining brightly as he said this. This kind of excitement that came from the depths of his soul was a kind of heartfelt excitement. Finally, this day had arrived. Brothers, how are you doing? Who's higher and who's lower will be rearranged when the time comes. The position of Big Boss can also be competed for as long as you have the strength. As the current Big Boss who's at the peak of the Saint level and is about to break through to the high-level Saint level, Big Boss Chuyan welcomes the challenge. This message was sent out by Mo Tianji at the fastest speed possible. Instantly it caused the brothers to wail. Big Boss, you can't be so cruel, right? You're already at the high-level Saint level, what's there to compete with you for? Aren't you just blatantly showing off? This is a blow, of course. The reactions of the brothers were different. The moment he received this news, Gu Duxing immediately made arrangements for the various matters of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion under his command. Then, he set off alone. All of you stay here and cultivate well. Continue to recruit and expand your strength. When I return, I'll lead all of you to the purple cloud heavens, slaughter the heavenly demon, and achieve immortality. Gu Duxing said with soaring sword intent. Then, he turned into a dazzling sword light along with his sword, disappearing from everyone's sight like a bolt of lightning. With regards to their big boss leaving so quickly, the subordinates were all a little confused. Our big boss Gu always had a cold face. It seemed that he had never been as excited as he was today. What was going on this time? Could it be that he cultivated too much and went crazy? But when they heard his last sentence, everyone also felt a kind of boiling blood from the bottom of their hearts. That was an undisguised, surging battle intent that surged to the heavens. Ever since joining the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, Big Boss Gu had been constantly promoting a very inspiring and popular slogan. Today's tough training, tomorrow's slaughter of the heavenly demons. Under the influence of what they saw and heard, everyone in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion had already made slaughtering the heavenly demons their lifelong goal. And now, is this day finally coming? Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow. In any case, not long after, we will step onto the battlefield and slaughter the heavenly demons. Our achievements will be endless, and our glory will shine for eternity. Gu Duxing ran at full speed all the way, but his heart was inexplicably burning. Finally, it's finally time to reunite with the brothers in the Heaven Imperial Court. Yesterday's vow is still ringing in your ears. Brother, do you still remember? The cold wind blew on his face, and it was like the cutting of a knife. Traces of pain continued for a long time, but Gu Duxing did not seem to feel it at all. He just turned into a fast sword light, and in a flash, he had already disappeared beyond the clouds, leaving no trace behind. On the other side, Mo Tianji was still slowly and methodically dealing with all the matters at hand. After arranging everything once, he gave a strict order. During the time that I'm not here, the Heavenly Secrets Intelligence Department is not to be the least bit negligent. All the intelligence, as usual. Everyone do your job. Whoever is negligent will be severely punished. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he then picked out 7 or 8 trusted subordinates, and put away the Heavenly Secret's hand. Then, with a command, a flying boat was set out. Mo Tianji's clothes fluttered as he boarded the flying boat, and it flew all the way to Mo Yuntian at lightning speed. Yes, this flying boat was bought by Mo Tianji after he earned money from selling intelligence. For the current Mo Tianji, It was too easy for him to obtain a flying boat that was extremely expensive in the eyes of others. It was simply too easy for him. It's just a flying boat. How much money does it cost? When Mo Tianji bought the flying boat, he said so. He almost made the official who sold the flying boat fall out with him. I know you're rich, but it's not right to be so hesitant. Compared to Gu Duxing, Mo Tianji's method was undoubtedly comfortable to the extreme. Furthermore, the speed was definitely not slow. It was just that Mo Tianji's heart was also burning with passion. His face, which had always been calm and unperturbed like an ancient well, was now flushed with excitement. Finally, everyone was going to be together again. He sat upright in the flying boat, as steady as a mountain. However, his trusted subordinates could clearly see that their boss was very excited. Because Mo Tianji's current situation was really too different from his usual self. In the past, there had never been anything that could move Mo Tianji in the slightest. His face was flushed with excitement, or flushed with anger. Those were definitely things that would never happen. Mo Tianji had always been calm and elegant. No matter what, no matter how serious it was all normal in his eyes. Nothing was important, and could not shake his calm heart. His calm and confident expression seemed to last forever, but today, their boss's expression actually changed. It turned red. Although it was still not very obvious, it was indeed red. Mo Tianji was excited and nervous at the same time, but he still had to pretend to be calm. After a long while, he finally helplessly smiled bitterly and shook his head, no longer deliberately pretending. "Boss, what's wrong with you?" someone beside him asked. "Nothing." Mo Tianji smiled bitterly again. He thought to himself. "Nothing? Of course not." At this moment, Mo Tianji was a little shocked, a little scared, and a little panicked. Previously, he had indeed gone overboard with his pranks. He had chased and killed Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang, Mo Laer, Ao Xianyun, Ray Butong, GMO, and Luo Kudi. These guys have been hunted down by me for a long time. Now that I've met them, it's very likely that I'll have to suffer a lot. Those guys have never been merciful. Now that I've got the chance to take revenge, they'll definitely take revenge on me. It was very likely that he would have to face a brutal group beating. As he thought about it, Mo Tianji smiled bitterly again. Faintly, he actually had some expectations in his heart. As long as the brothers could be together, it seemed that even if they had to suffer a lot, it would not be unacceptable. When you come out to make a living, you will pay for what you have to pay. Mo Tianji smiled bitterly and happily. I, the master of calculation and manipulation, Mo Tianji, knew that there was a trap in front of me, but I still couldn't wait to jump into it. All the subordinates were confused as they watched their leader rush out without any grace. They still could not figure out what had happened for a long time. Their leader was usually very unruly, but it seemed that he was even crazier today. What had happened? After rushing out for dozens of miles, Luo Kudi realized that he had made a big mistake. As the leader, he had suddenly left without a word. It seemed that he did not even say goodbye. He had not arranged anything. This was too unreasonable. Tomorrow is the birthday of like ice and raging fire, and dancing with the wind. Cough cough, don't misunderstand. These two accounts belong to the same person. It is a cute little girl. Let us wish her a happy birthday. Tomorrow is the Lantern Festival. I have to go home to worship my ancestors. I don't know when I will update, so I wish her a happy birthday in advance. Chapter 2296. Although reuniting with his brothers was a serious and important matter, he couldn't explain it so nicely. Thus, Luo Kudi ran back gloomily and arranged everything as fast as he could. Finally, he said, "Everyone here, work hard for me. I'm going to ink Cloud Sky to kill that heavenly demon, Yuan Tianji. I'll be back soon." Then, he laughed loudly and left. Everyone in Luo Kudi's bandit group was stunned. "Boss, you really dare to say that? That's the heavenly emperor of Ink Cloud. Even if he's really a heavenly demon, You're still not his match, right? You said it so confidently. I'll be back after killing him. That tone, it was as if that Yuan Tianji was a pig that was already tied up and waiting to be slaughtered. He was just waiting for you to kill him. Besides, that's a battle. Is there a need to be so excited? Look at how excited you are, as if you're in heat. His subordinates didn't guess wrong. Right now, in Luo Kudi's heart, whatever heavenly emperor of Ink Cloud, whatever heavenly demon king, whatever Yuan Tianji, they were all just farts at most. With us brothers attacking at the same time, a mere Yuan Tianji is not a big deal. With my brothers by my side, I'm invincible. Luo Kudi sang an unbearable tune all the way as he rushed towards Ink Cloud sky. It's really. There's a poem that says, wandering the North Sea in the morning and Kangwu in the evening, second young Master Luo is so bold that he doesn't even know who he is. As he flew, second young Master Luo fantasized, I wonder how that bastard GMO is doing now. His cultivation is definitely not as high as mine. Big Brother said that we can rearrange the seats this time, ha. This is simply a heaven-sent opportunity. I don't have any other requests this time. I don't have any extravagant hopes of winning against second young Master Gu and Big Brother Chu. As long as I can suppress that bastard GMO, I'll be done. This request isn't high, it's simply too low. As for that fellow Dong Wushang, forget it. I'm an honest man. How can I lower myself to compete with that barbarian? Although Luo Kudi claimed to be a wise man, he subconsciously shuddered and flew even faster. On the other side, GMO was also running at full speed. Coincidentally, he encountered the surface of the lake, and with a leap, he left it behind. Boss, what do you mean by rearranging the seats this time? I'm only at the pinnacle of the beginner stage of the Saint Realm. Am I going to fall behind? Why am I so lacking in confidence? I've had a series of fortuitous encounters recently, and my cultivation has improved greatly. Why am I still lacking in confidence? I've already climbed up the ranks of the top experts in the heavenly imperial court. Why am I lacking in confidence? No, this must be an illusion, it must be an illusion. I can do it, I can definitely do it. But, as for the position of boss, thinking of Chu Yang's half-smile, GMO decisively dismissed the idea. I, GMO, am not cut out to be the boss. As the boss, I have to worry about this and that. Let's forget about it. Otherwise, I'll definitely go crazy. How can a smart person like me do such a stupid thing? As for the second brother, thinking of Gu Duxing's ice-cold face, GMO couldn't help but shudder. Cough, cough. Let's not talk about anything else. Just that name alone is too unpleasant to hear. It's better to let Gu Duxing continue, but this time, can we continue to be third place? Although I'm lacking in confidence, no, I'm full of confidence. But this matter is still very hard to say. That Dong Wushang will definitely compete with me this time. If I want to surpass him this time, I don't know if it's possible. GMO thought for a while and also gave up. At most, I'll give up. Isn't it just the third brother? Well, it doesn't matter. As long as I can surpass Luo Kudi, it's fine. That guy is even lazier than me. He's definitely inferior to me. I still have this bit of confidence. Dog ant. Dog ant. Getting rid of Luo Kudi, Ray Butong, and Ao Shiyun will be my great victory. Dog ant. Yay. GMO left in high spirits, full of joy. In another world, the two of them were traveling at full speed in the sky. One was tall and sturdy, as if the whole world was on his shoulders. The other was dressed in black, petite and dainty. These two were naturally Dong Wushang and Mo Layer. It's finally time for us to gather again. The day when we brothers stand shoulder to shoulder and conquer the world is right in front of us. Dong Wushang's chest was full of pride, as if he had an intense impulse to roar to the sky. This time, I wonder how your brothers have progressed. I wonder how they compare to you. Mo Lay pursed her lips and smiled. In Mo Layer's heart, during this period of time, the couple's cultivation had broken through the death barrier one after another. It was almost as if they were leaps and bounds rapidly every day. In terms of cultivation, Chu Yang and the others should have long been left behind by Dong Wushang. Her husband was probably already the strongest among the brothers at this gathering. He was unrivaled. As Dong Wushang's wife, Emo Layer was naturally proud of her husband and was full of confidence. That's not necessarily true. A simple and honest smile appeared on Dong Wushang's face. Although I won't belittle myself, I won't be blindly arrogant either. According to my estimation, Chu Yang's current cultivation is still above mine, perhaps even much higher. As for Gu Duxing, he's almost on par with me. The two of us have always been like this, and this time will be no exception. As for the others, I don't know how much Rui Budong's Phoenix bloodline and Ao Xian's Golden Dragon bloodline have awakened. Against their superhuman physiques, it's really hard to say whether they'll win. Of course, GMO and Luo Kadi are definitely not as good as me. Dong Wushang chuckled, his tone certain. That was happiness and confidence from the bottom of his heart. This time, I must beat that little GMO to the ground, step on his monkey head and ascend to the position of third brother. Dong Wushang felt very aggrieved and indignant when he talked about this matter. That guy was just a lucky bastard back then. He actually broke through half a day earlier than me. That's how he got to the position of third brother. He's made me uncomfortable for so many years. Now that I finally have a heaven-sent opportunity, I must topple him. Emo Layer was very puzzled. Have you never thought of suppressing all the heroes and becoming the big brother among the brothers? I've never thought of it. I really haven't. Dong Wushang cracked a smile. The terror of Big Brother Chu and Gu Duxing. I've experienced it too deeply. This was the truth. The greatest blows that Dong Wushang had suffered in his life all came from Chu Yang and Gu Duxing. It made him feel that no matter how much he advanced, how hard he worked, and how many fortuitous encounters he had, those two people would always be able to suppress him and surpass him. Every time he felt that he had achieved great things and made extraordinary progress, he would always realize that those two fellows had improved a little more than him. This kind of thing had already happened far too many times. When it happened so many times by chance, chance was basically the same as certainty. Emo Lei pursed her lips. She didn't think much of her husband's self-modesty. She also acknowledged Chu Yang and Gu Duxing's strength, but she still felt that her man was the strongest. But Emo Layer didn't say anything more. Because she knew the relationship between Dong Wushang and Chu Yang and the other brothers. The so-called ranking between the brothers was just a gimmick. No matter who was first or second, it wouldn't affect the friendship between the brothers. Moreover, there was no hierarchy between them. Chu Yang, who was recognized as the big brother by the brothers, was still beaten to the ground by the brothers whenever he had time. He didn't have the slightest bit of the authority of a big brother at all. When they were happy, they went crazy together. When they were unhappy, they fought together. Wealth and power were all ignored by the others. But a joke could make these people beat each other up like pigs. Such pure feelings were no longer something that could be distinguished by who was first and who was second. I remember that when we were in the heavenly realm, Big Brother once said, "One day, we brothers will stand side by side and dominate the world." As Dong Wushang flew at a high speed, he gave a silly laugh full of emotion. The look on Boss' face when he said those words is still vivid in my mind. But now, it seems that we've really arrived at that moment. Layer, faster! I really can't wait anymore. Dong Wushang roared as he exerted strength in his legs and led the way. Emo Lei laughed bitterly and helplessly. She increased her speed and followed closely behind. In a faraway place, in another direction, Xiao Yun let out a long roar, and all the people on the ground followed the roar and found an extremely strange scene. Above the clouds, a golden dragon that was at least 10,000 feet long suddenly appeared. It flashed across the sky, bringing with it wind and thunder. It moved as fast as lightning towards a certain direction. Dragon? That's a dragon! I saw a dragon! Really? It's really a dragon! There really is a divine dragon in this world. Seeing a dragon in the blue sky, seeing a dragon in the blue sky, Oh my God! Aoshian, who was in the form of a golden dragon, was rushing forward in the clouds. His eyes were filled with urgency. There was also a strong sense of longing. Brothers, are you all okay? Brothers, I'm coming! I'm coming! Chapter 2297. The cry of a phoenix resounded through the sky. The phoenix returned to soaring sky. A huge phoenix with a wingspan of over 1,000 feet soared into the sky, bringing with it a dazzling multicolored cloud. It soared through the sky for thousands of miles, heading towards Emoyuntian at lightning speed. Along the way, hundreds of birds bowed and all living beings bowed their heads. This was the supreme power that only the king of the phoenix race had. For thousands of years, this shocking scene had long ceased to exist. Even the phoenix had completely disappeared from the heavenly imperial court. Even in the past, when hundreds of races were contending for supremacy, there were very few phoenix race experts who flew so ostentatiously in the sky. Now, in this era where hundreds of races had long declined, such a phoenix actually appeared out of nowhere and flew across the sky without any fear. This situation shocked a lot of people. But Rui Bong didn't care about this at all. You guys chase? TSK, can you catch up to me? Besides, even if you guys can catch up, when you guys catch up, I'll just fall down and turn into a human. What can you guys do to me? Humph, humph, humph. Rui Bong laughed wildly in his heart. Actually, Rui Bong himself wasn't such an ostentatious person, but if he wanted to reach Emoyuntian's side in the shortest time possible, it would be too slow in his human form. Compared to the flying speed of a phoenix, there was really a difference between the clouds and mud. They couldn't be compared at all. Just to avoid suspicion, if by the time I get there, that demon Yuan Tianji has already died under the siege of Chu Yan and the others. How much of a loss would I be then? How much of a loss would I be if I lost a great opportunity to show off my prowess in front of my brothers? How much of a loss would I be then? Besides, I'm going to fly over in such a domineering manner. At that time, if GMO or Luokadi were to talk nonsense, well, those two would definitely talk nonsense. They would definitely say, "Look, there's a bird flying over from the sky." At that time, this phoenix will happily beat the two of them into demon clansmen. Pig race. Besides, the ranking this time was very important. Forget about the others, but between Aoshian and himself, there must be a clear distinction. Is the dragon race more powerful, or is our phoenix race more powerful? Let's see who wins and who loses. As long as I can maintain my position as the third brother, then my position will be stable. In the future, I'll be in a really good mood. It had to be said that the mood among the brothers was very common. Right now, the most pressing matter wasn't to get rid of Yuan Tianji and help Xie Dan Qiong. Instead, it was to rearrange the positions of the brothers after they had reunited after a long time. Everyone's heart was burning with anxiety, and they were all in a mess. Everyone was restless, but at the same time, they were rubbing their fists and rubbing their palms together. But there was one thing in common, and that was that they shared the same thoughts and principles. Apart from Chu Yang and Gu Duxing, no one else dared to covet the position of the eldest and second brother. Even Rui Bong, whose strength had once surpassed everyone because of the phoenix's eternal nirvana, was still only aiming for third place. Because in the hearts of the brothers, there was a consensus that Chu Yang was the boss. Even the heavens couldn't change this ranking. Gu Duxing was the second. It was second brother. This point was also unshakable. No one could change it. As for the rest, it would depend on whose fist was bigger. Humph. No one was willing to submit to anyone, especially Mo Tianji. As long as they thought of Mo Tianji, that pretty boy with a belly full of evil tricks, everyone, including Gu Duxing, would start rubbing their fists and gnashing their teeth at the same time. This damned heavenly killer! You bastard, you made everyone so miserable. This time, if we don't teach him a good lesson and engrave it in his heart, how can we? This is intolerable. So, you just have to wait for everyone to repay you well. At the same time, on the other side, Chu Yang was also preparing to set off. Of course, Chu Yang didn't know that when his order was passed down, it wasn't really carried out. After those guys received the message brothers gather at Moyuntian, they were all so excited that they forgot about everything else. They completely neglected to think and analyze. Including Bu Duxing, they basically set off alone. It seems that even Mo Tianji has only brought a limited number of people. Everyone had completely ignored the word set off separately, only bring the elites, and only bring the elites that Mo Yuntian had seen. Actually, there was also a very subjective and objective reason that led to such a situation. In the past, as long as the brothers took action, it was purely the brothers working together to fight. There was no need to bring any subordinates. It was probably under the influence of such subjective thinking that everyone seemed to have intentionally or unintentionally neglected this problem. Each and every one of them set off alone. Only Dong Wushang and his family were side by side. In fact, they were still alone. There was also Mo Tianji who brought 8 people. The rest were standard commanders without an army. But Chu Yang's side was different, very different. After issuing the order to gather the brothers, Chu Yang immediately started to gather the people for this trip. It had been a long time since he last saw his brothers and sisters. This time, he definitely had to bring all of them. Xia Danqiong and Madame Mei, Ao Shiyun and his concubines, GMO and Huyan Aobua. It had been a long time since he last saw them. Chu Yang naturally had to bring all of them. The main purpose of this trip to Moyun Heaven was to kill Yuan Tianming, the scourge of the world. Meng Wuya's old subordinates were all fighting a bloody battle there, so Meng Wuya definitely had to go. Naturally, he also had to select experts to go with his original group of subordinates. Crazy Book and Painting King had already recovered their vitality with the help of the heavy pills. So, they could heal their remaining injuries as they hurried on their way. So, it was entirely possible for them to recover as long as Chu Yang was here. So, how could they not bring along such a super expert? Moreover, the two of them had a blood feud with each other. How could they not take revenge with their own hands? There was also Chu Luer. She had improved a lot now, especially in the art of poison. How could she not set off? Tan Tan was a combat-type talent who would boil with excitement at the mention of war. How could they abandon him? Xia Danfeng had always followed Tan Tan, and she had not seen her brother Xia Danqiong for a long time. Naturally, she had to follow too. And Mo Qingwu would never abandon him. She had always followed Chu Yang wherever he went. She herself was also one of the tribulations. She had to go even if he did not want her to. Xi Xieching's cultivation was outstanding. Now that she had improved further, she had already crossed the threshold of the saint level. She was practically the strongest expert on Chu Yang's side. How could she be left out of such a big battle? There was another most important factor. This trip to assist Xia Danqiong would definitely be a tough battle of life and death. How could there be fewer experts? Therefore, Chu Yang had really gathered a large group of people on his side. How could Yao Ningning, this guy who only wanted to see the world in chaos, miss out on such a battle of the century? He insisted on following along to see the world. The experts of Demon Emperor Heaven were worried and followed along. For the sake of safety, the Demon Empress simply sent 2 7-star guards to accompany them. Therefore, the number of people on Demon Emperor Heaven's side was also not small. They were majestic and had a large retinue. After thinking about it, Chu Yang decided to leave Tai Baqian and Wu Qianqian behind to control the overall situation. The 2 women's cultivation had improved a lot, and they were already among the top experts in the world. However, they were still not combat-type talents, and lacked actual combat experience. If the 2 of them really participated in the battle, it would really be a waste of their talents. Duan Sankong, Chrysanthemum Saber King, Li Guanyu, and the others stayed behind to guard. There was also Tribulation Divine Soul. This elder brother also followed Chu Yang to the battle. Before leaving, Chu Yang grabbed Yao Ningning and gave him a good beating. He asked him to come forward and transfer 15 flying ships of Demon Emperor Heaven's imperial family. Each ship was packed with thousands of people. At this point, A total of 100,000 people rose into the air and flew toward Mo Yuntian's side. If he had not confirmed that Yuan Tianjie was a heavenly demon, Chu Yang might not have made such a big fuss. However, since Yuan Tianjie was a heavenly demon, Chu Yang treated this battle as a prelude to the final battle against the heavenly demon. There could not be any mistakes. There were some situations regarding the heavenly demon that needed to be explored in this battle. For the future battle, there must be a complete preparation. Although Crazed Book and Painting King looked gloomy, their injuries had almost recovered. Heavy pills and the powerful recovery ability of high-level saints were no small matter. It would be strange if they did not recover. However, the two of them were full of anger as they followed the battle this time. Their hatred for Yuan Tianjie would never disappear. After walking for 2 days in vain, Crazy Book finally asked the question that he had wanted to hear for a long time. Minister Chu, when you passed down the order, you said that your brothers would act together and gather at Mo Yuntian. Were you referring to those people? Chu Yang smiled from the bottom of his heart. That's my brothers. My best brothers. Chu Yang laughed. Does Crazed Book King know Xie Danqiong, who is leading Heavenly Armament Pavilion to fight Yuan Tianjie and Mo Yuntian? The two of them nodded. Xie Danqiong was now famous in Mo Yuntian. How could the two of them not know him? This Xie Danqiong is one of them. My brother! Chu Yang's eyes shone with an inexplicable light. Do you know Gu Duxing, who was hunted down some time ago? The one who got the inheritance of Cloudy Heaven's sword. He is also one of my brothers. Also, the Tianji Intelligence Department that is now spread all over the Heavenly Imperial Court was founded by another brother of mine, Mo Tianji. Besides, the more Crazed Book and Painting King heard, the more shocked they were. None of the names that came out of Chu Yang's mouth were ordinary people. Every one of them was a powerful figure who had risen to fame in the Heavenly Imperial Court recently. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.